last I checked, we just checked it together, there are over 48,000 daily user accounts that are active right now. So this is one of the biggest games in the Web3 space. It's been around for over 5 years, and it's growing fast. It's extremely popular. Now, do you want to give an elevator pitch or like a brief overview of Splinterlands?
Yeah, I mean, so the high level, you kind of said like Magic the Gathering on the blockchain. And I think it's actually more similar to physical games like Magic and Pokemon than the digital games like the Hearthstones, because of the ownership and the trading and the secondary markets and all that stuff. And so it is similar in concept to all the other trading card games you might know, where you buy packs of cards, you get the different cards, you can trade them, you can buy them, you can sell them, and you use them to battle against other players. In this case, however, there's like a couple of things that I didn't really like so much about the more traditional games, Magic and Hearthstone and all that. Like, I'm a big deck builder, and the reality with those games is you kind of have to be competitive. You have to go online and just look up what the best decks are, net decking as it's called, and then you basically just play those over and over and over. And I was always the type who wanted to come up with my own decks and different card combinations and different ideas. But I would never really be competitive. There's no way I could come up with something that was going to be better than all of the internet put together. So I had this idea, again, many, many years ago. It'd be really cool if there was a trading card game where the rules change every match. So you wouldn't have a deck that you pre-build and you go in with, because the whole idea is to know each card and be able to pick which ones to use on the fly based on these kind of random rule sets that come into the game. And it's things like, maybe healing can't be used in these certain matches, or only certain types of cards can be used, or there's all sorts of different scenarios. So that's what Splinterlands is. So there's no going online and just saying this is the best deck that I'll play, or these are the few best decks. It's really a game of on the fly thinking, and the players who both own the widest variety of cards and who really know what cards to use in what situations and how to pair them together and all that stuff are going to win. And on top of that, the battles, it's an auto battler, right? So you do this, you get paired with an opponent, you get these random rules and other parameters. Then you have 2 minutes on the fly to pick your team, we call it. You put them on the battlefield, and then the battle plays out automatically from that point. So it's really how much do you understand the different rules and the mechanics, and how do you pick and place your cards. But the whole thing, takes a few minutes. It's a really interesting game concept, in my opinion. It's a concept I came up with having nothing to do with blockchain. But then when you add the blockchain and the asset ownership into it, that's where the real fireworks come in. Now we're able to combine both worlds: digital, online entertainment, which has tremendous advantages over physical games, combined with that ability to actually build up assets and build up value over the long term. So we're trying to combine both of those value propositions together here. A really fun, engaging product that includes the whole economic aspect of it with that long-term value creation that comes with digital asset ownership.
It's all about ownership. You actually own your assets. And that's what was cool about Magic the Gathering. You owned that card. You had it in your hand. And with digital games these days, a lot of times you don't own any of the digital assets yourselves. And that's where blockchain tech really shines, I think. And so many ways to play and strategize. Like, even if you just want to be an owner in the game and profit, you can do that by getting game assets, get your collections, get your deck, get your cards, and you can actually rent them out. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a big part of the game. And we've had for a really long time, and also working over the years to figure out that system and make it work as easily and as smoothly as possible. I think we have over 1 million cards, I think, that are actively rented out at any given time.
Wow.
And so that's something. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players, who just don't have the time to sit there and spend playing, right? Or they buy more cards than they themselves can use, or whatever it is. So yeah, we have a very active rental market. You can put them out, and they're, a lot of them will be even like sub 1 cent a day or something. Again, like the higher level cards and the more rare cards obviously go for much more. But in order for people to, play the game, you're going to need like hundreds of cards usually. So that adds up. So it gets to the point where, you know, we have players, especially in different parts of the world, who don't have enough money to actually buy all the cards that they need for themselves. It can get expensive, so they rent them, right? And you can spend, you know, a few dollars a day or whatever it is renting your collection of cards. And if you're a skilled player, you can, you know, parlay those rented cards into more than a few dollars a day via the ranked play and the tournaments and everything. So it's an opportunity for people who don't have as much money to sink into the game. And while they're doing that, they also earn cards and they're building up their own collection of valuable assets at the same time. And then it allows players who just want it as more of like a passive investment thing, to not only, you know, be able to hold on to their assets as they hope the value appreciates over time, but also have like a passive income stream on top of it.
And that's what my one friend did, who's made over 6 figures in Splinterlands. I asked him, like, how did you make so much money playing Splinterlands? He's like, well, I've been playing this game since it started because I love it. And I have just been building my collections, my cards, my game assets. I'm putting all of those things to work in the ecosystem. So he has like all these assets. And yes, he's trading them and doing things like that, but he's just amassing these digital assets that are becoming more and more valuable over time. And he's also putting them to work in the game to make more assets.
You know, one of the things we set up, there's the Splintershards token you mentioned. That's the governance token and the earning token in the system. So as you play, the better you do, the more of SPS you're going to earn, and you stake it. And that's, you know, the more you stake, the more you get. And also that gives you your voting power in the DAO. That does actually have like significant, you know, there's like many proposals that happen kind of on a regular basis that you can actually be a part of and change kind of the course of how things go. But then the DEC token is actually our in-game, you know, sort of stable coin. I say sort of stable coin in that it's backed by Splinterlands products. So what that means is that all of the products in Splinterlands that you can buy, you can purchase for fixed amounts of DEC tokens or the equivalent amount of dollars. So a pack right now in the game would cost $4, and you could pay with actual dollars using PayPal or Bitcoin or ETH, $4 per pack, or 4,000 dark energy crystals. So it's 1,000 dark energy crystals per dollar. But the thing is, even if the value of dark energy crystals falls on the market, and when you showed the price, it was like, you know, 0.95. So it's a little below that, right? So there's an opportunity. There's a little bit of an arbitrage opportunity. If you want to buy packs, you could pay $4, or you could get it like 5 cents on the dollar cheaper if you purchase it with 4,000 dark energy crystals. And then you can just burn SPS tokens and mint more DEC. So that's another arbitrage opportunity. If there's extra demand for DEC, people who own SPS tokens, or people can just go buy SPS tokens and burn $1 worth of SPS tokens for 1,000 DEC. New DEC is minted. That keeps the price again stable, and all the value essentially goes into SPS. So it's really, the game is set up in such a way where pretty much all of the value from everything that's purchased, whether it's you know, card packs or cards on the market, or, you know, there's a bunch of different things in the game. All that value eventually goes into the SPS token through this kind of mechanism. And there's opportunities for the arbitragers and the traders, you know, but for like the regular people, you know, they're not going to care about like a little few percent here and there. And then on our markets, everything is priced in DEC also. The tokenomics all work to benefit the people who get and hold SPS, because all that value ultimately goes to the SPS token.
Look at this, $7.2 million in tournament prizes awarded. I keep coming to the screen just to show people, look at how much money has been paid out to players in this game just from tournaments.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
The tournament feature is actually pretty cool. So the DAO is the main sponsor of tournaments, right? And the, you know, token holders basically like vote on the details of that. And that's one of the like reward pools of SPS inflation goes toward that. But also it's an open system where anyone can create a tournament and they can put up whatever they want as prizes. So it's like, it's another opportunity when we have like more marketing focus, is like we've had like other crypto or blockchain platforms or even non-crypto platforms come and just make Splinterlands tournaments and put up their own tokens or their own stuff as prizes as a way of just marketing to our user base.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, and from our user base's perspective, it's just more value to the cards, right? If you have cards and you're good at Splinterlands, you can play in these tournaments. There's more stuff you can win. And then some of them, they can even have like entry requirements, like you need to sign up for something or whatever they want, really. So it's just a really cool like cross promotional tool that gives more prizes and more value to Splinterlands assets.
I think that's a great idea. You've got such an active user base that is tech savvy. And I think for marketing purposes, that tournament system there is a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah.
I don't really know any other GameFi games right now that are this exciting to me in terms of actual gameplay. That's me saying a lot to you, Matt. That's a huge compliment.
I appreciate it.
By the way, I don't just say that to anybody out here. I've interviewed a bunch of GameFi developers, and most of them don't even have anything to show yet. Whereas you're coming in here locked and loaded with an amazing game. You got me excited. The green tea and the coffee are hitting me hard. You got me bullish, Matt. You did a good job here. And I think anybody who watches this whole thing is probably pretty excited about Splinterlands if they're not already. It's incredible that what you've done on Hive blockchain, by the way, with like already proof of millions of transactions per day just for Splinterlands on Hive blockchain. So, and gas free. The user, the player pays $0 in gas fees because you guys are staking a whole bunch of Hive tokens to generate the Hive power or whatever that the players would use in the game, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. Right. And some of the games in that position, they just take a lot of the stuff off chain, right? To avoid the gas fees. I'm like, well, that defeats the whole purpose, right? It's like, yes. Okay, the NFTs are on chain and the tokens, but then you just have a centralized game. But we have everything on chain. That's why there's so many transactions. And this is the only way we could do that.
That's brilliant. So you guys really have like led the way here in terms of fully decentralized gaming. I really haven't heard of a solution as well rounded as this and as robust in actual production, in a live production environment like you guys with this many transactions. Like you just said, you have more transactions than the entire Ethereum blockchain in a given day, potentially just from your game.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me that you haven't done marketing before and it's already this huge. I mean, this is one of the biggest games out here, and that's just a testament, I think, to how good Splinterlands as a game is, that you guys haven't done marketing yet, and you have 50,000 daily users, and I think over 800,000 daily transactions, which is nuts. Do you want to put that in perspective for people?
Yeah, so that's transactions on the blockchain. But around 800,000 a day on average right now. Back in the middle of the bull run, it was something like 3 or 4 million blockchain transactions a day from Splinterlands, and that's roughly the same, if not more, than like the entire Ethereum blockchain does in a day.
The transactions by Splinterlands right here, about 800,000 daily transactions on average, and you said that's more than the daily average transactions on the entire Ethereum blockchain. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked up the exact numbers, but it's at least roughly in the same ballpark.
That's wild. And you can see here the daily average active accounts, 48,000 right now. It's a huge game. The market cap, like 50 million US dollars.
I feel like right now the focus is very blockchain centric. People, are involved in this chain or that chain, and they only want to play games on this chain or that chain. It's very important what chain it's on. But I think eventually, people won't know or won't care, right? They just want fun games, good products where they can own their assets and get all the benefits that they're looking for. It'll just be like when I watch Netflix, I'm not like, well, this is on Amazon Web Services and not, Microsoft Cloud or whatever. So I'm not using it, or like no one knows, no one cares. It's just like they get the shows they want to watch, right? And eventually, that's going to be the case, for all type of dApps. eventually. So our focus was never on like what's the most popular blockchain or the one with the most like VC money or capital behind it or any of that. It was really like what's the one that gives the best experience for our players? Like what's the one that just makes it easy and drop dead simple to use this? Because like I myself, like I'm a developer, I'm in the blockchain and crypto space, but this game was also built for like a lot of people I know who are just gamers. And they're not going to figure out how to set up MetaMask and buy ETH or whatever token to pay gas fees. So the Hive blockchain is a fork of what was originally the Steem blockchain, which is STEEM, no relation to the gaming platform STEAM. That's a fascinating story that could be a whole entire other podcast, but I'm not going to get into that now. But the point is, it was kind of like. It launched in 2016, I believe. So it was like Web3 before Web3 was a thing. And its entire focus was trying to be like a much more user-friendly, but still completely decentralized experience. And Hive, just so everyone knows, one of the things we like about it is that it is a completely community-run and owned chain. So it is one of the most decentralized blockchains that exists, as far as I know. There's no company, organization, foundation. There's no VCs. There's no pre-mines. There's no any of those pitfalls or things that so many of the other blockchains have. It's 100% community owned and operated, and it's super easy to use. It has no transaction fees. You just have to stake the token, and we, the Splinterlands team, can stake tokens in our wallet that we delegate automatically to players who come in. So you don't have to know anything about crypto. You don't have to buy any crypto. You don't have to pay gas fees. It's all kind of handled in the back end. Again, just like if I watch Netflix, I don't have to like buy Amazon Web Services credits and like figure out how to pay them for my bandwidth or whatever. Whenever I watch a video, I just pay Netflix my monthly fee, and it works. So it's the same thing here. You put money into the ecosystem generally, and you're able to use it, and it just works. Also, it has this thing called account abstraction by default. And this is sort of like a new thing that Vitalik's been talking about, and they're looking at implementing on Ethereum and other EVM chains that Hive has had for I guess 8 years now. So this is another problem that came up from like Magic and those type of cards. So we talked about like you get all these duplicate cards that you can't use, and in Splinterlands you can combine them and level them up. So that's cool. There's another problem is like Splinterlands, like all these games, we release new sets of cards on a regular basis, right? So there's still like these old, like the alpha and beta, like the old cards, and like the old cards, like the first couple sets, like those always maintain their value just as collector's items. But then there's still like, as the years go on, again, we're in year 5. Well, I guess we're on our 6th year. It is like, there's a lot like these sets in between that are just like, again, they're worthless, in a lot of these games, because you always just want the latest and greatest, and there's power creep and all this stuff. So we're like, well, how do we have a digital platform? We can do all sorts of cool things. How do we solve for this? So that's where the land expansion comes in. We're adding new types of cards to the game called item and spell cards. So right now there's the summoner and the units that we talked about. There's going to be these new item and spell cards that are going to be, again, that second battle stage after you see your opponent's team and your team, and you can like cast spells and equip item and change how the battle plays out at that point. These cards we're not going to sell. They're never going to be sold in packs. You craft them through owning land. And the workers on the land are going to be the old cards in the game. So the idea is you take all your old cards, instead of having them sit in boxes in your basement or sit in your wallet collecting virtual dust, they're your workers on your land, and they produce these new exclusive cards that you can then sell to new players coming into the game, because land is very limited. There's not a lot of it. So new players coming into the game, like they're not going to be getting into land at all for a while. They're just going to want to rent cards off the market or buy them to play the game. So all the item and spell cards that they rent or buy are going to be from people who crafted them on land using their old cards. So it's a land expansion. It's going to be a whole full-fledged like resource management, empire building type game. We're in like early stages of it now as we are building it out. But that's the whole idea, which I just think is so cool. There's like an actual economic value at the end of it. It's not just try to get to the best to show off and say what you have. Like, you will actually be creating these new assets that new players in the game will need to buy. And you use your old cards to do it. So like all the cards in the game maintain value through this system. We're building an additional game, which is also a sort of like, I don't know if it fits exactly into an existing game genre, but you know, it takes a lot of ideas from like the Clash of Clans type of thing, where you have all these different buildings that produce all these different resources. Not the fighting part of it. We already have our battling part of the game, but this is like that whole like, you know, land and resource management part. And as you put up on the screen, this is kind of our flow chart of what we're building and how it's all going to work. So it's pretty complex. There's going to be like 50 some different resources, 30 some different buildings that you'll be able to build. And each land plot will only be able to have one building on it. So players, you know, we have a lot of players who have a lot of land plots. Some people have entire regions, which are 1,000 land plots that they'll be managing. And each land plot has different rarities. It has a map of a whole continent and all the regions. And so the land plots have different rarities, and they have different like terrains, forests, mountains, lakes, whatever. They may have special magical resources that are present that you can mine. So, you know, if you have a mountainous plot, you could build a mine on it to get ores, and then you would need all these different resources to upgrade your mine to higher levels and get higher rarity ores. And then some people will build, you know, like refineries to take ores and refine them into metal bars that can then be used for things. And it's like, so this whole big system, and players will basically be building their own in-game businesses kind of. And the end product is going to be these new cards that I talked about, the item and spell cards. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom. So a lot of people may not actually produce the item and spell cards themselves, right? They may be one part of the supply chain. And I look at this like a real world supply chain thing. Like if you're, you know, buying something at the store, even like a loaf of bread, you know, there's a farmer that makes the wheat, and then there's a mill that like mills the wheat, and then there's, you know, probably, you know, they need an oven that they bake it in, and you know, the packaging and the shipping and like all these things. So it's like the same thing here. It's like this whole long supply chain process, and like players, based on what type of land they have and like their strengths and weaknesses, can like kind of pick their niche within this whole system, and they'll ultimately, like at the end of the day, whoever decides to craft the item and spell cards on their land plots will sell those in the market, and they'll get money. They'll use a portion of that to buy more of the resources they need to craft those item and spell cards from someone else who produces them. So the money kind of from those end products trickles through the system, just like the farmer, you know, making the grain isn't the one selling the bread at the grocery store, but they're getting the value from those eventual sales. So it's, you know, it's going to be a really intricate and cool system. And the whole idea also is players are going to be able to provide, we're going to have like our own internal AMM liquidity markets for this. So like you might produce these different resources, and you can just build storage buildings on your land to just store them and then put them in these liquidity markets. And every resource, there's going to be like 50 or so of them, are going to be paired against the DEC token. So that's going to be, so if like someone is like, oh, I'm producing a lot of wood, but I need stone, you know, they'll just trade it on the market, and it'll trade the wood for DEC and then the DEC for stone in one, you know, atomic transaction, with fees going to the liquidity providers. And that's how this whole like ecosystem will work. But the cool thing is that's going to be a huge new use case for DEC, right? There's going to be like massive amounts of DEC that are going to have to be paired with all of these new resources in these internal liquidity pools. And, you know, that DEC, like players are going to buy it off the market, right, at whatever price, or they can burn SPS to get it. So again, like whenever people need DEC, since it's a relatively stable token, like basically all that value goes to the SPS token. So again, like this entire ecosystem is designed for the value to go to the SPS token. And you're also going to need DEC to upgrade the building. So you'll need like wood, planks, and lumber, and metal bars, and all these things to upgrade your buildings, and DEC tokens. And you also need to stake DEC. That's like the power source that the worker cards use on your land. So like players, you know, that's already live in the game right now. Players can like put worker cards on land and earn a small subset of the resources. And they need DEC to do that. So that's been a huge use case for the token. And all the value again goes into SPS. That's a part of the reason also for the like large rise in SPS that you saw in the chart over the last few months, was like this is all starting to go live. I spent so much time and so much money on all sorts of different games. And I just felt so bad about it, especially once I had like a family and everything. I was like, I shouldn't be spending this much in these games, and like I should be building businesses and or saving for retirement or whatever. And I'm like, now I can play these games and grow wealth and save for retirement, and like it's just like it's all together. I mean, that's the holy grail, I think.
It just makes it more worthwhile, and it makes gaming feel less like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at Magic the Gathering, which worked out that way. Like I have a relatively valuable collection of cards now because of the time and money I spent over the years. And I was like, that totally went away, all out the window with digital games. And that sucked. And I was so excited in 2017 when I like learned about all this stuff. I was like, I have to make a trading card game. It's like it just has to exist, because I know I would like just spend tons of money and time in something like that. And there's a lot of other nerds like me out there who love this stuff.
I am so glad you came on to my channel here to talk about this. My community is going to love it. I've been looking for some really great GameFi plays to bring them. Everybody's looking for new GameFi games to play as well. Play to earn is huge. It always will be. It's going to be the biggest way to onboard new users to DeFi and blockchain technology. I still stand by that to this day. We're seeing it happen. You guys have made it seamless where somebody can come here without knowing anything about blockchain tech, without knowing anything about wallets. They can create an account, and they don't even have to know that there is a blockchain involved, and they can play this game. Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we have strived to do. And, we're always working on improving that experience, but I still think it's, kind of ahead of what most of the projects in the space are. I mean, even I have trouble getting into some of the games and getting all the tokens for the gas fees and the different things that you need to do. And I'm like, if I have trouble with it as one of, the biggest DeFi degens, there's no way just regular gamers are going to do it.
I totally agree. I'm the same way. A lot of GameFi games I want to play, but the hurdle of just like bridging my assets over, eating those fees, and then figuring it all out, and then having to justify paying gas for every single game transaction, it hurts me, man. It hurts me. I can't do it. So,
yeah, 100%.
You have come up with a solution for all of these different pain points in GameFi, and I think it shows by just the word of mouth success you've had over 5 years. And I think once you really pour that gasoline on the fire in terms of spreading this message about Splinterlands, this thing's just going to explode. It's tried and tested. It's incredibly fun. It can be incredibly lucrative.
Appreciate the work and the effort that you put in. So I mean, I'm sure your audience knows this, but man, like you really did the work. You didn't just come on and wing it. Like Alex spends the time here to learn what he's talking about, and I appreciate that too, because I want someone who knows what they're talking about to talk to, really get the word out there.
Thanks. I really appreciate that hard work and preparation, so that way I can bring the best information as possible to my viewers. Thanks for all the kind words. And Vonak! Hey, everybody. It's Alex here. And on today's episode of the YaBonks Show, I have a very special guest with me today. I have Matt Rosen, the co-founder of Splinterlands, one of the biggest and most popular games in the Web3 space that has been going strong for over 5 years. Splinterlands is a digital collectible card game based on blockchain technology with multiple ways to earn real money playing the game. Imagine Magic the Gathering, the card game, except online and on the blockchain. And I know multiple people currently making thousands of dollars per year playing Splinterlands, and I personally know someone that has made over 6 figures playing Splinterlands over the years. And I can't wait to dive into all this with you, Matt. I've been talking about Splinterlands for 2 years now with my good buddy AJ Brockman from EMP Money and Spark Swap. He loves your game, and he's always been talking about it with the highest praise. So it's really awesome to finally have you on the show here today. Matt, do you want to say hi to the audience and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that awesome intro. Hey, everybody. Like Alex said, I'm Matt Rosen. I'm one of the co-founders of Splinterlands, and I guess you mentioned Magic the Gathering. That was really like the inspiration behind this whole thing. So I've been a huge gamer and game developer pretty much my whole life, and trading card games, especially Magic, was like my kind of like bread and butter. I mean, I still have. I mean, you can't see I have a background on, but on the wall next to me, I have my collection of beta Magic the Gathering cards. And yeah, so I played games like this. I built games for other companies, Facebook games and mobile games and all these things. And my focus actually was on real money games, even before blockchain. So there were like sweepstakes based games and loyalty games, even some actual gambling and casino games. So sort of this was like a match made in heaven. And once I learned about blockchain and NFTs and digital assets and all that stuff in the 2017 timeframe, I was immediately like, oh man, we got to create like a trading card game that uses this. Because I went from playing Magic where I owned my assets. Like I said, I still have a large collection of cards. I buy and sell them on eBay and all that stuff. To Hearthstone and MTG Arena. Where that entire part of the game was lost. So to me, it was like almost my whole life was sort of leading up to this opportunity. And I was just so excited to do something like this.
I love it. And I also played Magic the Gathering and collected the cards when I was younger with my brother and our friends. And yeah, that's amazing that you're still trading them on eBay to this day. I know some of those are worth a fortune now. And I love that you've incorporated the concept of fantasy collectible trading card game and battle game onto the blockchain now, where it's all about ownership. You actually own your assets. Now, what was cool about Magic the Gathering, you owned that card. You had it in your hand. And with digital games these days, a lot of times you don't own any of the digital assets yourselves. And that's where blockchain tech really shines, I think. So that's fantastic. Now, do you want to give an elevator pitch or like a brief overview of Splinterlands in your own words for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, so the high level, you kind of said like Magic the Gathering on the blockchain. And I think it's actually more similar to physical games like Magic and Pokemon than the digital games like the Hearthstones, because of the ownership and the trading and the secondary markets and all that stuff. But another thing is that Splinterlands is itself, it's not a clone of Magic. It's not a clone of Hearthstone. I think a lot of things we've seen in a lot of these games and blockchain projects is they just take a successful game, traditional game, and just copy it pretty much, and then throw in NFTs. I didn't want to do that. Like I said, I've been a game developer and designer pretty much since I was young, like 9 or 10 years old. And so I am always coming up with new game concepts. So, the concept behind Splinterlands was one that I had come up with even before I knew about blockchain or anything. And this was just sort of the opportunity I had to implement it. And so it is similar in concept to all the other trading card games you might know, where you buy packs of cards, you get the different cards, you can trade them, you can buy them, you can sell them, and you use them to battle against other players. In this case, however, there's like a couple of things that I didn't really like so much about the more traditional games, Magic and Hearthstone and all that. Like, I'm a big deck builder, and the reality with those games is you kind of have to to be competitive, you have to go online and just look up what the best decks are, net decking as it's called. And then you basically just play those over and over and over. And, I was always the type who wanted to come up with my own decks and different card combinations and different ideas. But I would never really be competitive. There's no way I could come up with something that was going to be better than all of the internet put together. So I had this idea, again, many, many years ago. It'd be really cool if there was a trading card game where the rules change every match. So you wouldn't have a deck that you pre-build and you go in with, because the whole idea is to know each card and be able to pick which ones to use on the fly based on these kind of random rule sets that come into the game. And it's things like, maybe healing can't be used in these certain matches, or only certain types of cards can be used, or there's all sorts of different scenarios. So that's what Splinterlands is. So there's no going online and just saying this is the best deck that I'll play, or these are the few best decks. It's really a game of on the fly thinking, and the players who both own the widest variety of cards and who really know what cards to use in what situations and how to pair them together and all that stuff are going to win. And on top of that, the battles, it's an auto battler, right? So you do this, you get paired with an opponent, you get these random rules and other parameters. Then you have 2 minutes on the fly to pick your team, we call it. You put them on the battlefield, and then the battle plays out automatically from that point. So it's really how much do you understand the different rules and the mechanics, and how do you pick and place your cards. But the whole thing, takes a few minutes, right? I also, as I've gotten older and a family and a life, don't have time for the 20 to 30 minute matches anymore. Yeah. So this is, they have these quick matches you can play, when you have a few minutes here and there between things or whatever. And it's really comes down, there's no like net decking concept at all. It comes down to, you and how well you know the cards and how many assets you have, that goes into the skill factor of the game. So I just think, again, it's a really interesting game concept, in my opinion. It's a concept I came up with having nothing to do with blockchain. But then when you add the blockchain and the asset ownership into it, that's where the real fireworks come in.
I love it. I think that's brilliant. It really is. And I know it's extremely popular. I think last I checked, we just checked it together, there are over 48,000 daily user accounts that are active right now. So this is one of the biggest games in the Web3 space. It's been around for over 5 years, and it's growing fast. It's extremely popular. So I'm honored that you're here on the YaBonks show with me today. So before we dive into everything, because there's a lot to unpack here, do you have any news or important updates that you want to share with the audience that is relevant right now?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. One of the reasons also I'm doing this show, and I appreciate you having me on. We've kind of been starting to take things in a very different direction over the past few months with the company and the product as a whole. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about, is that for the past, like you said, it's been 5.5 years since we launched, and we've focused a lot on just continuing to put out new features and new content and new things for our existing player base, sort of with the assumption that, just new players would continue to come naturally and things would grow. And we've never put a lot of time and effort really into that whole new player experience coming into the game. It can be daunting. Like there's so much stuff. We're going to talk about it, a lot of it here tonight. But we haven't made it easy for new people to come in, and we focused a lot on our existing player base, which is good. But on the flip side, that's not how we really grow and really bring this thing to the next level. So the focus of our entire organization is really shifting right now into this onboarding experience, making it just an awesome, fun, easy experience for new people, not just crypto Web3 people, but just anyone, gamers. I mean, this was built for gamers primarily, to just really come in and be able to easily understand this, get the whole idea behind it, get involved, because we've shown with our existing player base that once people get it and they understand the game, they really get into it. right? And once we do that, then we're going to really start promoting this and marketing it. And we've never done that to date over the last 5 years. It's been all like, self-run. We're not like venture funded, right? This was all self-funded and everything. So we didn't like throw millions of dollars at marketing. But the plan is to do that, right? To get the product up to that level, and then to go out and just hit it really hard, put this game everywhere. And originally I was like, okay, well, let's wait till we get our product up to where we want it to be before we do that. And then, some of the feedback I got was like, let's do some outreach now to with people like Alex and your audience, because right now, before we do that, in my opinion, is where the opportunity is, right? So you can wait until we do all that. We improve the product even more. We start our big marketing pushes. But since this is all real assets, there's tokens, there's NFTs. If you get in before that happens, that's where the real value and opportunity is. So there was a good opportunity for us to start spreading the word and saying, this is what we're doing. We've never done it. We've kind of shown what can happen once we get people into this game and understanding it. And now we're going to really start putting a ton of resources behind that, and that's our main focus. So that's like the main message I'm trying to put out right now.
Awesome. I think that's a great idea, especially leading up to the bull market. We are going into a bull run with the Bitcoin halving coming up, and people right now are looking for GameFi plays. I know I am. For everybody who watches my weekly show every Friday night, I am talking about what I'm adding to my portfolio. And I'm always asking my audience, what are your top AI plays? DPIN, decentralized infrastructure, and GameFi. Those are like my big three right now. And I am looking for solid GameFi plays with games that are actually good, that are already working, that are built. They're not just like an idea on a whiteboard. And so you guys have a track record. And also, I've been looking at the tokens and everything and doing my own tokenomic analysis. It's not financial advice, but I think there is a lot of upside given everything that you just said and where the Splintershards token price is right now. So I'm going to be picking some of that up myself and just having that as part of my GameFi portfolio. And I think it's going to do well in the bull run. Not financial advice, that's my opinion and my guess, but there's potentially a lot of upside there, especially if you look at your previous market cap. If you guys get even close to that, that's like a 10x from here. And if you guys surpass that, that's going to be wild. And now that you guys are actually actively going out and marketing to reach new audiences and communities, I think it could get pretty crazy as the whole world floods back into the crypto and blockchain space in the next 6 months to 2 years. What do you think about what I just said? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I try not to look at it from like token price perspective or anything about that. Right? We just focus on the product, right? And ultimately, a better product gives better results for players. And it's the same thing. Again, it's just like Magic the Gathering, if you're familiar with that, or Pokemon or anything. Like the more stuff that those companies put out, right? The better their product, the more people are interested in the game, the more those assets are worth. And that's the big thing here. It is just that, now, unlike traditional games, unlike the Hearthstones or whatever, they could make that game better. They could get, millions and millions of more players in it and whatever. And you as a player don't get any benefit other than maybe more match liquidity, right? You get nothing. And it's a huge loss. I mean, it's a huge loss for the world in general. And so blockchain and NFTs, digital assets, it all brings that back. And it allows everyone to benefit together, if these things are successful. So like exactly what you were saying, just on a more, higher level picture, is we are 100% focused on making the best product we can. And we have a lot of experience doing it. That's another thing is like, there are tons of people getting into this space. It's a hot space. I think everyone knows that blockchain gaming is going to be where gaming goes. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how exactly it's going to get there, but like eventually it's just going to be the norm. and not the exception. And so everyone's trying to figure it out, right? And we've literally, I've spent the past 5.5 years just thinking about nothing but this, and a lot of people on our team, years, just like we just think about this. We've tried like hundreds of different things. We've seen things that work. We've seen things that didn't. And I just feel like that's probably our biggest competitive advantage, just time in this space, figuring out what works, what doesn't, how to integrate tokens, how to integrate digital assets into this, and just make this whole ecosystem work where the value is shared by everybody. So that's, like my version of sort of what you said, as we do this, how the value will accrue to everyone in this ecosystem.
I love it. I think that's the right mindset for somebody running a project and building a product out here, especially a game. Like, you have to be focusing on making it the best game ever, so people actually want to play it, versus just another token, this or that. Like, but the game's like a secondary thought. I like that you guys make the game the most important aspect, and then the value that everybody gets out of it, comes along with making the best game possible. So I love that mindset. I'm a software engineer too. I know you are as well. And it's a tricky thing because you can build the best product ever, but if nobody knows about it, they're never going to find it. I love that you guys are already huge. So many people already know about you. You have like 50,000 daily players already. And now you're actively going out and spreading the word as you're building all of these next stages of Splinterlands. So I love that you're doing both things, which I think is very important, especially leading up to the bull run, so you can maximize that value for everybody in the ecosystem. Now, speaking of value, I love to ask this question because I come at this as both a user and an investor, and all this stuff. So what do you think are the main value propositions to the users of Splinterlands?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, right? I think the question I would ask about any project I would get involved in. So the first one is obviously the product itself. We talked about our goal is to build the best product that we can. And the product is more than just the game and just the battling, right? So that's one thing I think a lot of people don't understand in the space. So, that's obviously the main, like the core gameplay. There's, ranked battles, and people, you battle other players, you fight for leaderboard ranks and rewards and all these different things. But everything, in my opinion, is part of the game. So it's not only, do you beat your opponent in a battle, it's how do you get the assets that you use to beat the opponents in the battle? You can buy them, you can rent them. Which ones do you get? What prices do you get them at? What do you do with tokens that you earn or other different assets like that? That to me is all part of the game. That was a big part of what made Magic the Gathering fun to me, right? It wasn't just playing against my friends. It was all the things about like, hey, can I get these cool new cards? Do I buy packs? Do I buy individual cards from the shop or eBay or whatever it is? Like, the whole economic aspect is part of the game. So we try to focus on all that. I mean, that's our core value proposition, is building not only a fun actual like battling what you traditionally think of as a game, but an entire ecosystem around that. That's also part of the fun. Like people, not everybody, I get it, but there's a lot of people like me out there who enjoy that aspect of the game too. How you get to the top of different leaderboards and all these different things. And then the cool part is that you can add on top of that the kind of other piece of the value proposition, which is the earning. And I don't even really like to say earning, because it kind of puts in a mindset of like, oh, how much do I make every week or every month, rather than how do I build up more assets and ownership for myself over time? So when I played, Magic the Gathering, I wasn't, saying, oh, I'm making $100 a month or anything. I wasn't. I was just having fun. I was buying these cards. I was maybe trading or even selling some cards or whatever. And now, almost 30 years later, I have what's a very valuable collection, hanging on my wall, right? So it was building up wealth over time, and I think that's that's the way I try to encourage people to look at it, because that's also like the difference, just at a much higher level outside of games specifically. Like that's sort of the whole difference between the divide between rich and poor in society. You know, the lower classes they're just like, what's my salary? What's my hourly wage, et cetera. And the rich are the ones who know they're building up assets, right? They're building hard things, whether it's real estate or gold or Bitcoin now. They get these things that over time grow massive wealth, not just like smaller amounts of fiat currency every hour or month or whatever it is. So, I mean, that's essentially what blockchain gaming provides at the end of the day. It provides the opportunity for you to play games like you normally do. I play games all the time. Ridiculous amount of time playing games. But I once they went digital, right, I was never able to build up anything. It was just wasted time for entertainment, just passing the time. So now we're able to combine both worlds, digital online entertainment, which has tremendous advantages over physical games, combined with that ability to actually build up assets and build up value over the long term. So we're trying to combine both of those value propositions together here. A really fun, engaging product that includes the whole economic aspect of it with that long-term value creation that comes with digital asset ownership.
I love it. And that is quite the feat. It really hasn't been done well or much yet in this space. Like, we are on the frontier of this kind of a thing. Like, we have seen in-game economies, like back in the day with like Second Life, where they actually had like a conversion of like the Linden dollars to US dollars. I thought that was mind-blowing. But again, it was so centralized. Now with games on the blockchain, it's decentralized. You own those assets in your own wallet. And like these cards, you actually own them yourself, and you can trade them freely between yourself and other players through different marketplaces, and you can rent them out and do all sorts of things. One thing you mentioned was accumulating valuable assets over time to build wealth versus just, can I make $100 a month here or there? And that's what my one friend did, who's made over 6 figures in Splinterlands. I asked him, like, how did you make so much money playing Splinterlands? He's like, well, I've been playing this game since it started because I love it. And I have just been building my collections, my cards, my game assets. I'm putting all of those things to work in the ecosystem. So he has like all these assets, and yes, he's trading them and doing things like that, but he's just amassing these digital assets that are becoming more and more valuable over time. And he's also putting them to work in the game to make more assets. It's fascinating how he's done it. And it's not the answer I was expecting. Like, I was expecting get in early, buy cheap, dump it all. No, he's just been playing and accumulating this stuff and just building out this amazing collection that's now worth a fortune. And he's putting it to work, and it generates more and more rewards that then he puts to work generating more rewards. And I love it. I think it's super cool that you guys have really tweaked this ecosystem over 5 years. Like, you guys aren't coming into this guessing at this point. Like, you guys have dialed this in. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really clear on what works and what doesn't and where we need to go. But part of it is we're not there yet, right? I mean, we do have a small team. And again, that's sort of where the opportunity is, right? If we have this all 100% perfect, that then theoretically, things would be even much higher and much better off than they are now. So that's what we're working towards. So we identify each of these different things and how they work, and that's like the main focus of what we're working on over the course of the next 6 months or a year, is like taking a lot of that learning and putting it right into the product, and then getting it ready to get it out there, right? You said earlier, like, if we could make the best product, but ultimately if we don't get it out there, if people don't know about it, it's not going to be successful. So that's a big thing we're doing different now than we've done before, is we're really gonna push the marketing and promotion hard when we feel like we've got everything at the right spot.
Yeah. And I think that's a good idea. And it's great that you guys have that mindset of having a great product that you're constantly improving, and your marketing. So like you're marketing something you've already built. It's already been like vetted and tested by the community for 5 years. You've refined it, over these feedback cycles, and now you're marketing. It's mind blowing to me that you haven't done marketing before, and it's already this huge. I mean, this is one of the biggest games out here, and that's just a testament, I think, to how good Splinterlands as a game is, that you guys haven't done marketing yet, and you have 50,000 daily users, and I think over 800,000 daily transactions, which is nuts. Do you want to put that in perspective for people?
Yeah, so that's transactions on the blockchain. And I guess we'll talk a little bit more about the blockchain platform and how that works. But around 800,000 a day on average right now. Back in the middle of the bull run, it was something like 3 or 4 million blockchain transactions a day from Splinterlands, and that's roughly the same, if not more, than like the entire Ethereum blockchain does in a day.
That's wild. So let me see if I can pull up my screen here. You said, so this is the Splinterlands dashboard on peakmonsters.com. Third-party site. They track analytics for different things. And the transactions by Splinterlands right here, about 800,000 daily transactions on average. And you said that's more than the daily average transactions on the entire Ethereum blockchain. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked up the exact numbers, but it's at least roughly in the same ballpark.
That's wild. I love it. And you can see here the daily average active accounts, 48,000 right now. It's a huge game. The market cap, like 50 million US dollars. So this is a really cool website. Thank you for sharing this with me. Peakmonsters.com, Splinterlands dashboard. So here, by the way, I'm going to pull up the Splinterlands website for those who haven't seen it before. It's just splinterlands.com. And this is it. One thing I love is the artwork and the aesthetic that you guys have built into the game. I've also been watching a lot of Splinterlands videos over the past few weeks. And what I've really liked lately are the cinematics. Like you guys have these videos that are just beautiful, emotional. The music's fantastic, and the artwork's incredible, and it's like built into the lore, which is unreal. By the way, go read the Splinterlands lore. It's really in depth, and I just love the whole emotional aesthetic that is now coming to life in the game. Is that like a new decision to really take this like a more cinematic experience lately?
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of it is, I mean, it's all our creative department. We have a great creative director, a great creative department. I personally take no credit for any of that stuff. And yeah, we've always been huge on the lore aspect, like you mentioned, and that's great. I know not everyone's that into it, but people like myself and there's a lot of other people. It just makes the whole experience so much more immersive and engaging when there's real lore and stories behind this whole thing. There's even a book that we published via Kickstarter a few years ago. It's like a 200-page sort of D&D campaign guide style book about the Splinterlands universe, and we have blog posts with the lore. There's every single card in the game. There's specific lore about that character and everything, and that's where the videos and the cinematic stuff comes into play. It really it brings the lore to life, and our creative team takes every opportunity they can to put that stuff in. Sometimes I don't even know that it's happening, right? And they just hey, look at this thing we made, and I'm like, that's awesome. And I just keep, tell them to keep going with that stuff.
It's fantastic. Your creative team's doing a great job. The lore here, if you guys go to lore.splinterlands.com, they've got like maps for all this stuff, and it's just so in depth. It's really well done, and I think it adds a lot to the I don't know, like the emotional and experiential value of the cards that you collect, and it kind of gives you more of a connection to the assets you own versus just some dry utilitarian NFT that does this or that. Like this has stories and characters and territories and just such a history behind it. I can't imagine how long it took you guys, your creative team, to come up with all this stuff. But I love that you built this in. It really shows your dedication to creating a really cool fantasy game.
Yeah, and I mean, I should mention this wasn't like, management and myself being like, we need to hire people to create lore and you work on this and you do that and you put these things out. We've been focusing on the game and the product and building it out and all that stuff and running a business. And it's just like the people that we bring on, a lot of the people that work for us were actually just players of the game first and foremost. And then, they were like, hey, we're a graphics artist, or, I'm an audio designer or whatever, I'm a content writer. And we brought them into the organization and we just let them go. Like, just go do cool stuff. Right. And this is what comes out of it.
Well, that's amazing. They've done an excellent job here. This is something I think a lot of games are missing, that come onto the scene. They're just usually some like tokenomics play with barely any story behind it. The artwork is usually not well thought out, just AI generated and thrown up these days. Whereas this like has a lot of thought into it. And it kind of ties everything together where you're not just playing some random like card game. Each card is built into this. Okay, for people who don't know, do you want to kind of explain how Splinterlands works? And you touched on it a little bit with like the speed of the games and the battles. Do you kind of want to give an introduction of how to play Splinterlands and build a collection?
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned earlier, it's an auto battler trading card game where the rules and parameters change every battle. So, the basics of it are similar to what you'd expect from a Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering or Pokemon. You buy packs of cards in the shop, you open them, you get 5 random cards from whichever set you purchase. There's different sets. They have very specific caps of how many are printed. Everything's verifiable on the blockchain. Limited numbers of assets. You can see exactly who has them, where they are, how many there are, all that stuff. But then instead of creating a deck, like you don't construct a deck and then go play. You first go look for a match. You get matched up with an opponent at a similar rating level, and then you're presented with these random, what we call rule sets, and a mana cap. So every card costs a certain amount of mana. And so when you find an opponent, it'll say, okay, this battle has a mana cap of 30 and it has these different rule sets. It'll say something like, you can only use these type of cards, and this ability, doesn't work or works differently or whatever it is. And then you and your opponent simultaneously have 2 minutes to go take your collection and pick the cards that you want in that battle based on the mana cap and the rule sets. Obviously, you could pick, if you have a mana cap of 30, you could pick 3 cards that cost 10 mana, your big beefy guys, or you could pick, 6 cards that cost 5 mana, or any different combination. And there's different pros and cons to each of that. And then it's not like a deck that gets shuffled randomly. You pick your cards and you position them on the battlefield. So that way, I mean, if you scroll down on the screen, there a little bit, there was a picture of the battlefield, and you can see, here it is. So you can see like each card you put in a specific position, and their position actually determines, how they affect the battle, how the battle will play out. So once that 2 minutes is up, after you and your opponent have picked your cards, and there's even some abilities or things you can do, which we call tactics, where certain cards will allow you to do different things or make changes after you see your team and your opponent's team on the battlefield, and you can kind of play the battle out in your head and say, I need to make this change or do this here. Then once you hit go, the battle plays out automatically based on the rules of the system. So really it's about two things. It's about how well you understand the rules of the system and know which cards to pick. You have 2 minutes in these random scenarios, and there's like millions of different combinations that are possible. So you got these 2 minutes, and you got to know your cards. You got to know, like, these type of rule sets mean I need these cards, and I put them in these positions, and you try to anticipate what your opponent's going to do, right? And you try to block that or counter that. And then the second thing is you got to have the assets, right? So if you don't have the cards, you can't play them. And so that's a big thing too, and that's where that second value proposition comes in. Is if the cards are limited, every set is very limited in quantity, and you got to have the cards, and you can't just make one deck of cards and play that over and over. If you just have like one small set of cards, you're not going to do well in all the different rule set combinations. So you really have to have a wide variety of cards, which encourages serious players. They need to get a lot of cards, right, to make sure they have the cards for every scenario. And it also is interesting because anyone who's a big trading card game player knows that there's often there's the really good cards that people use all the time, and there's cards that just suck and are just never used. But in Splinterlands, it's actually cool because of the different rule sets. Like every card has a niche. There's some weird combinations of things where this card that normally sucks is awesome, right? Which is really cool. Because there's rarely, cards that are just like, this is a total waste of a card. I don't need it in my collection. There's certainly some that are more useful than others, but there's always that situation where you want to have that normally crappy card to put it in, which I think is really cool. And there's one more mechanic I want to talk about when we're into this and like how the game works that I think is really important. And this is something, again, anyone who's played a physical card game will understand. You open a pack of Magic cards, you get 15 cards, and there's probably like 14 crap cards and one rare card that you might need. And then if you're like me, you have boxes of these duplicate cards in your basement or wherever that are just collecting dust and are worthless. Yeah. So with Splinterlands, if you get a duplicate of a card you already have, you can combine them together, which makes the card level up and get more powerful. So it actually burns, all but one of the NFTs, and the resulting NFT is a higher level version with higher stats or more abilities. So when you open packs, you might get a bunch of cards you already have. That's actually good for you. And it also means that the NFTs themselves are extremely highly deflationary. And for like common cards, for example, you would need 400 of the same card before that card got to the max level that it could be, and you can't combine any more together. So, wow. Again, it's not just like you open packs and you're like, I already have that card, or, in Hearthstone or Magic, you could use like 2 or max 4 in a deck. No, here you need more and more and more. So you're trying to keep getting them, and again, level them up. So when that battle comes up with those specific rule sets where you need these specific cards, the players that have them in their collection are the ones who are going to do the best, assuming they have them and they know when to deploy them.
Wow. Yeah, that's intricate. There are so many levels of strategy there to break down. And I also love how you've taken the quote-unquote junk cards, which in the right situation might come in clutch. However, if you're, like in Magic the Gathering, I remember having boxes of the crappy cards. However, in Splinterlands, you're saying you can combine them to level them up and make them more powerful and more valuable, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's great. So if you end up getting cards in decks or in like rewards, if you've got like loot chests or other things, and you get these cards that most people would consider throwaway cards, you can actually collect enough of them, combine them, and get something much more valuable. So everything has value in this game, right?
Yeah, and it's not only just that you can combine them, but even non-combined, since there's these different rules for every battle, like none of the cards are throwaway cards, because there's like specific niches that those cards are all of a sudden, they went from being crappy cards in most situations to this one weird situation where that card kind of shines.
Yeah, because you have that preliminary time before the match to assemble the deck that you're going to play with based on the game rules that are randomized each match. So you never know what you're going to get. You never know what the mana cap for the match is going to be. So you got to build your deck that way. And I believe you have to have like one summoner, and then that summoner summons the rest of the cards that you play with, and also the types of cards that you're allowed to play with during that match is also randomized. So you have different kinds of cards based on elements, like I think like fire and water and dragons, and there's a whole slew of them. And then you have to select from those types of cards that you have that you're able to summon with your summoner, I believe.
Yeah, the summoner is similar to like the hero in Hearthstone, so the Hearthstone also has like water or fire and those type of things. So the summoner cards are like that, but they're actual cards, they're NFTs, you get them in packs just like anything else. So you pick a summoner, and the summoners sort of give special boosts or abilities or even debuffs to the other team, to the rest of your team. They don't directly fight in the battle. And then the other cards, like monsters or units, or those are the ones you position on the battlefield, and you obviously need to synergize them with your summoner if you want to win. And if you pick a death element summoner, you'll only be able to use death element units on the battlefield, or there's neutral units also that can be used with any different summoner.
And you got to pick this stuff on the fly based on those randomized match rules for that specific match. And you said you are able to see what your opponent is putting together as well, and you can adjust. Is that correct?
Well, so normally no. So normally you and your opponent pick at the same time. You don't see what your opponent's doing. You both submit it, and then the battle plays out from there. There's a new feature that was just released with our latest set that came out in December, which is called Tactics, where certain cards allow you to make different adjustments after you see your opponent's team on the battlefield. So that's like an even added level of skill. Now you don't just have to, pick your things and just try to anticipate what your opponent's going to do. Once you see what your opponent's done and what you've picked, then you have to, and it again comes down to how well you understand the rules of the game. Because when you see that battlefield, you have at that point, I think, a minute or 30 seconds to sort of figure out how it's going to play out in your mind. And then think, do I need to make a change? What do I change? Based on what your summoner card allows. So that's a whole new kind of element of skill and decision making and like player agency that we've added to the game literally about a month ago.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's what I was asking about, is that ability to kind of see, to make changes after you've already seen the board based on what you've both picked. I love that. That just exponentially makes it so much more strategic and really changes the game up big time. I think it's super cool, and I believe you have like different attack types like melee and range and magic. And you can only put like your melee unit in the front row, range in the back row, and magic anywhere. And then you have speed stats on each card. And based on those speed stats, I believe, is which units attack first. And I believe if you guys have the same speed, then it's randomized who goes first in that instance. And yeah, so there's so many different ways to play this. And then they have like heart or armor stats, and then health stat. You take their armor off, then you got to take their health off before they die. And this all happens within like 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, well, so picking the teams is you have 2 minutes to do it, and then you can. Right. Then the battle, is resolved almost instantly, right? It's how fast the computer can calculate. And again, it's all deterministic, right? So everything is 100% deterministic based on you know, I don't know what the word is, but you know, unguessable blockchain data, and everything when you submit a team and everything, it's signed with your private keys and all that, and that's used to you know, so all the randomness is deterministic randomness. It's not something that we can like, you know, just fudge or make it so, you know, players we like win. But then you can play the battle once it's played out. You watch it on the screens. You see, like on the screen there's like playback buttons. There's like pause and you know, kind of go back and everything. So you can play it back and see if you don't understand what happened. You play it like a couple times, or you know, a lot of people that are avid players watch the battles on like, you know, 2 or 3x speed to play them out. So yeah, the actual resolution of the battle is instant, and then you watch it on the screen to see what happened, where you could have done better or whatever.
I think that's fantastic, so people can learn and improve for future matches. It's so great. It's like you're setting up you know, a battlefield with your characters, and then you just let it go. You let it rip, and based on how well you strategized on your given information and your given collection that you've acquired, you then it's in fate's hands at that point, and it's all, like you said, deterministic, based on verifiably randomized data on the blockchain. So like you guys can't, like you said, fudge the numbers here. This stuff is verifiably chosen on the blockchain, so people can verify if they ever feel like they lost unfairly. They can go look at those 800,000 transactions per day, find their game, and see what happened and make sure that it matches. That's another great thing about the blockchain, because in video games, especially multiplayer games or games where there are rankings involved and leaderboards and game assets on the line that actually have dollar value, people complain that, hey, I don't think this was fair, or the game is rigged, people will say. But the beauty of the blockchain is that it's decentralized. You can see the code, essentially, and you can see the blockchain transactions for the games as well, which just really changes things and makes things provably fair, which I love.
Yeah, it's most obvious actually when you go to open packs. So we have, like, you buy packs of cards in the shop. That's how, you know, the new Splinterlands cards get minted. And then when you open them, you submit a transaction to the blockchain. And then on the game website, you know, after, you can like flip your cards over and there's cool animations and stuff. There's like a link to verify the blockchain data for that pack. So if you click on the link, it'll show you like your transaction ID and the block information and everything that goes into the deterministic randomness for the pack. And you can, you know, the code is embedded in the page there. So that's public, you know, and you can verify that, you know, that's what you got. And there's no way that could be, you know, modified or tampered with because no one else has your private key, right? That transaction was signed with your key. And one of the cool things that I like is you can see actually if you could just play around with it. Like if your transaction ID was, you know, ended with a 2 instead of a 1, you know, you could run the code and see what you would have gotten. You know what I mean? You know, or like, oh, if I did this, you know, 1 minute later, would I have gotten the like gold foil legendary card or whatever? So I don't know what value to that there is, but I do that all the time. I'm like, oh man, if it would just been like this instead of that, would I have gotten something way better or not?
Yeah, I have done that on gambling websites on the blockchain. So I know what you mean, where it's like, if I would have waited a few minutes and tried it then the randomness I would have won big. I have also looked at that in gambling games where there is provably fair randomness and things like that. Where, you know, you're getting like a hash based on multiple randomized factors that can only happen in that instance. And you can't front run it. You can't predict what that hash is going to be. Yes.
That's the word I was looking for earlier.
Unpredictable, exactly. And especially if you're minting a deck, right, that could have potentially something worth a lot of value.
Yeah.
You don't want people to be able to exploit that system, right?
Yeah, of course not. I mean, that's that's key. Someone could exploit the cards they got in packs. That would kind of defeat the purpose of the whole thing.
Absolutely. Now, okay, so the game's brilliant. I think it's I think it's genius, and obviously this isn't like a overnight wonder. This is 5 years of hard work from a very highly skilled and intelligent team. I've listened to your town hall meetings. Your team is a bunch of brainiacs. Like, you listen for 5 minutes and you're just like, there are too many IQ points here. I can't handle it. I mean that as a software engineer myself. Like, I could tell when other developers know what they're talking about. And it's really cool how structured and methodical these new rollouts are. And hearing you guys talk about it so publicly with your community in these town halls, I think you guys have excellent communication. And I think that's very commendable in this space when a lot of times people are kind of left in the dark. Have you always done these town halls like that?
Yeah, I mean, the goal of this is not just to create another fun game, even with the asset ownership and everything. Again, the whole idea of blockchain and ownership goes beyond just assets and ownership of the entire project itself, right? So as much as possible, like, my long-term goal is to have this be a completely community owned and run game in itself. So we always try to involve the community in everything. I mean, even very early on, like, here's what we're thinking. We get ideas from the community. I mean, most of the stuff we've done over, we've talked about the 5 years and we've tried all these different things and seen what works and what doesn't. Like, that's alongside our players, right? We're not just up in this ivory tower kind of making decisions. We run stuff by our players on the town halls and everywhere. We're doing those every other week now on Thursdays. And we just talk about everything. I mean, half of it is us talking about what we're planning to do, what we're thinking about, what's happening, and then the other half is just questions and discussion with the community. Most of the people that work for us, like I mentioned earlier, we're players, and they just came in to work with us. We encourage them as much as possible to talk to players, to talk on Discord. And that's, when we get into the SPS token, the Splintershards token, that's set up as a DAO and completely run by the players. And then we just work with the DAO community in sort of this like symbiotic relationship to make this overall product.
I love it. That's another beautiful thing about Web3, DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, which really gives a lot of the big decision making abilities to the actual players and stakeholders in the ecosystem. So obviously, like the executive team, you have to make decisions yourself and everything, but it's nice that you can make certain decisions that involve the community so easy to do and also verifiable, where I've seen other games or projects basically game their voting systems if they're not using an actual DAO. So that's super cool. You guys have a DAO, you involve the community. What has the community response been with all the changes lately and everything you guys are doing?
Well, I mean, as far as I can tell, the community response has been very positive. And again, a lot of this comes from the community, right? So
Yeah.
I would expect it to be positive. I mean, the community's been talking about for a long time how, they're all 100% into it. They know this game. They understand it, the value propositions behind it that we talked about. But it's been hard to get new players coming in. They bring in their friends. They bring in people. It's hard to get people through it to understand all of these different things. I mean, we hardly even touched on, I feel like, half the stuff that's part of this whole ecosystem. So, and then, they want us to promote it more, us and them, like anything, like obviously they're stakeholders in the system. The more people that come in, the more money that comes into the ecosystem, the more they benefit. So that's been a big thing we've been hearing from the community for a while now, is make it easier for new people to like grok this whole thing, and
Yes.
and then go tell everybody about it. So we said, let's, we're sort of going to work together with the community and the DAO to do all of that.
Absolutely. And great use of the word grok there. I'm an old science fiction fan myself, and that's which book did that come from? I read it just a couple years ago.
I don't remember.
Stranger from a Strange Land by is that Heinlein or yeah, I think it's by Heinlein. Stranger to Strange
Is that
Land.
where it first came from?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I learned something.
I believe so. I'm a big nerd, dude. I read so many books. I love science fiction and fantasy books as well. And grok, became a popular computer science term. And that's like a cult classic book, and then people started using that, like, do you grok this? And that's like the context it's used in that book. And anyway, a little tidbit, Easter egg of sci-fi cult knowledge there. And yeah, so for new users to grok the system, it is a lot to digest. Splinterlands, it has so much going on, which is an awesome thing for somebody looking for a game. If you're looking for a game that has so much to do and so much value and so many ways to play and strategize, like, even if you just want to be an owner in the game and profit, you can do that by getting game assets, get your collections, get your deck, get your cards, and you can actually rent them out. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a big part of the game. And we've had for a really long time, and also, like, working over the years to figure out that system and make it work as easily and as smoothly as possible. I think we have over 1 million cards, I think, that are actively rented out at any given time.
Wow.
And so that's something. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players, who just don't have the time to sit there and spend playing, right? Or they buy more cards than they themselves can use, or whatever it is. So yeah, we have a very active rental market. You can put them out, and they're, a lot of them will be even like sub 1 cent a day or something. Again, like the higher level cards and the more rare cards obviously go for much more. But in order for people to, play the game, you're going to need like hundreds of cards usually. So that adds up. So it gets to the point where, we have players, especially in different parts of the world, who don't have enough money to actually buy all the cards that they need for themselves. It can get expensive, so they rent them, right? And you can spend, a few dollars a day or whatever it is renting your collection of cards. And if you're a skilled player, you can, parlay those rented cards into more than a few dollars a day via the ranked play and the tournaments and everything. So it's an opportunity for people who don't have as much money to sink into the game. And while they're doing that, they also earn cards, and they're building up their own collection of valuable assets at the same time. And then it allows players who just want it as more of like a passive investment thing, to not only, be able to hold on to their assets as they hope the value appreciates over time, but also have like a passive income stream on top of it.
Yes, and I love that because I'm so busy. I run multiple businesses. I run a 501c3 nonprofit animal sanctuary called Karma Farm Sanctuary. Shameless plug there for a good cause. But I'm so busy. I love gaming, but I can't find time for it anymore. But this is the kind of thing that I could see myself starting an account, acquiring some assets, like putting some money into it, and just renting those out and seeing those assets appreciate in capital value based on demand and supply and demand, and then also getting the rental fees. I think that's a super cool way to make money in GameFi that not a lot of people are taking advantage of yet.
Yeah, and it's trustless, which, it should go without saying, but it doesn't always. So it's not like, again, if you had like physical cards, you let your friend borrow them and they can, lose them or steal them or spill stuff on them or whatever the case can be. It's all digital and, again, blockchain based. So you choose to rent out your cards, and you as the owner can cancel those rentals at any time, or if it's like for a specific amount of time, you enter that into that like contract up front. But there's no risk of, the person renting them running away with them or harming them or anything. So yeah,
that's good.
It's completely trustless.
And that's something, that's a nuance a lot of people might not understand in blockchain tech. In lending and borrowing, oftentimes if somebody loses the asset, then you're kind of out of luck. But you're saying this keeps the true ownership with your account, your wallet, and no matter what they do with it, it's still yours at the end of the day.
Yeah, all they can do with it is use it to play in battles, right? So you really still own the card. It's still in your wallet. It still shows as like you own that NFT in your wallet. It just signals to the system that this other wallet is able to use it in battles, and that you are not able to use it in battles. So yeah, it's not even like, you know, lending someone your Bitcoin or something and they can put it in some, you know, meme thing and lose it all and you don't get it back. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Good to know. And is there a way to, I think I read something about, like sharing in you can like set up the rental contract so that way you can share in the rewards that they earn while using your cards.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole different things you can do, and a lot of it are built by third parties, right? So there's other, like you showed that Peak Monsters site, and there's other third party sites. There's a whole bunch that, you know, have their own different systems of how this works. So within the Splinterlands website, the kind of basic rental market is you set a price and you just get paid that amount on a daily basis, and you don't get a percentage of earnings or anything. But then there are other third party sites that have like different systems where, you know, it's like more of a scholar system that they have in a lot of these type of games, where you can set up an account with cards and allow a scholar to play it, and then you have a certain split of the earnings, right? Rather than renting like one card individually out to different people, you just kind of rent a whole collection or a whole account that like someone else plays on, and you split the earnings. So the better they do, the more each of you makes, rather than getting a fixed upfront price.
I see that. And that's a great way to do it. If you have a really powerful card and you rent it out to an active player who's good, then it, you know, maybe it makes more sense to do it that way. Either way, I love that you've given the freedom to make that decision to the users, which is, it just makes for a cool ecosystem. You don't know what's going to happen because you've created kind of a free market here for card rentals.
Yeah, and it's whatever also like third party developers can think of to build, right? You know, there's a lot of stuff, like, again, I mentioned we have a small team, we have our focus, but you know, so sometimes we're like, that's a cool idea, but like that's just not our priority right now. But you know, a lot of third party developers can go run with it if they want to build a system, and then they usually take a fee for using that, and that's how they earn from building those products.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned something about maybe somebody who doesn't have a lot of capital to start acquiring different decks to build out their collection. And you mentioned renting as a viable option if they're good at the game for them to potentially make more in earnings than they're paying in rental fees. And I don't know this person at all. I just watched a lot of their Splinterlands videos preparing for this, but After Sound Gaming YouTube channel, man, this guy, he's making over $100 a month playing this game right now, like today. Like he's making thousands, over $1,000, over $1,200 a year right now at the current price. And the way he showed how to do it from scratch, basically he created a new account, showed how to rent a dirt cheap deck for like nothing, and showed how to use that deck to get to like bronze ranking or to the like to move up in the leagues or whatever. And he just showed how to do it all, and it was brilliant. So anybody who's looking for like a quick way to get into this and start winning, check out After Sound Gaming's videos. He's pushing out strategic videos on Splinterlands that he's using to earn over $100 a month just playing this casually, and shows you how to get into like the monetized leagues as quick as possible. Do you want to explain that, by the way? Like, how do you, are there like matches that are free that don't pay out any rewards, and are there matches that do pay out rewards? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the game is technically free to play. You can come in and you can try it out, and you get sort of like starter cards that aren't like real NFTs, but just like cards that you can use to play and see how the game works, etc. But we try to be clear that generally this is not your typical free to play game, right? So these are all assets and they all have value, and so for that they have a cost, right? So all there's like practice battles and you can just like challenge your friend and do that just for fun or whatever that don't have any rewards, but like almost no one does that. So the vast majority of play is through the ranked battle system or the tournament system. And there's no downside. There's no reason like not to play a ranked battle where you can earn rewards. You don't lose anything, right? So there's reward pools there of the like inflation from the tokens and the new cards that goes out to the players for winning battles and tournaments and things. And obviously the higher your rating, the better you are at the game, the more you get of those reward pools. And those reward pools are also shrinking over time, right? As ideally the value goes up in dollar terms, the amount shrinks until it eventually goes away. So there's really no reason not to participate in the ranked system with earnings, and that's how you can build up your collection. And there's cards that you can only get by playing that you can't get by purchasing them on the market. So it really encourages people to actually play. That was one of the things that like was a personal thing for me, was like I don't have a ton of time. Obviously, I'm quite busy with this and life in general. So I found like, rather than playing that much, I would just go buy the cards I need on the market and be done with it. And I didn't have all that much motivation to play as much as I would have otherwise. So once we introduced those rewards and these cards that you could only get by playing, I was like, I gotta play now. I gotta make sure I do everything I can, which is exactly what we want. So there's some of both, right? It's like, yeah, you gotta buy cards or rent them, but you gotta put some money in if you want these real assets that provide real value. But also it's not just that. So even like the biggest whale can't just come in and have everything on day one, right? There's certain things that, even the smallest player who's been playing for a long time is going to have, and that whale is going to need to earn. So I think that's a good balance between those two parts of the game.
And that makes sense because you don't want it to become unbalanced and for whales to just start getting everything.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you have checks and balances in place that you've probably figured out over time, which is why having a game that has a track record out here and is going so strong is a good thing, because that means if you're getting involved in a game like this, you're less likely to be surprised by something they haven't thought of yet, like that, like whales figuring out ways to exploit all of their massive amounts of assets to basically prevent you from getting any assets yourselves. So I see you have like loot chests and things like that. And are these where you would get those cards for playing the game?
Yeah, that's exactly where you get them from. There's like you get loot chests daily for how well you do every day, and then you also accumulate loot chests each season. So there's 2 week seasons, roughly 2 weeks. There's 2 every month, and you basically try to move up as high as you can every season, and then you drop back down a little bit for the next season, and then you go again. So you accumulate chests every day, and then you accumulate a larger amount at the end of the season. There, as you're showing on the screen, there's like the different leagues in the game have higher chances of getting more rare and better things in the chests, and that's how you get those special like reward only cards and a bunch of other things, including the SPS tokens, potions, and a whole bunch of different things in the game.
Yeah, so that's very cool. I love that you've incorporated an element of the game that rewards you in better cards just by playing the game, or at least the chance to get rare cards. So it's not just who has tokens that they've earned or bought that they can just throw at buying new packs of cards, because obviously then that's just going to favor people with the most amount of money that they're willing to throw at this to get all the coolest cards. This way, the more you play, the more chances you have to get these loot boxes, which each one gives you the opportunity to get different cards that you might not be able to get anywhere else. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So that's awesome, and that's probably one of the reasons why you have 50,000 daily active users, because they're probably out here trying to play and get these super rare cards they can only get by playing or buying on the secondary market, which if you're just a card speculator, a card trader, if you play this game, you get a super rare card in a loot chest, and then you can just put it up on the market and sell it for whatever the going rate is. And potentially, I'm guessing, a very rare card, like if you're in a higher league and you get like a gold foil or legendary or something, that could potentially be worth a lot of money, right?
Well, so one key thing is that the reward only cards are what are called soulbound cards. So those are not able to be sold right on the market. Otherwise, again, it'd be the same situation where the whales just come in and they can just buy them. And yeah, they buy them from players who earn them, but still, like, you can only get them by playing. And then once we release new card editions over time. So once the current set of soulbound cards goes out of print and a new set replaces them, then you will be able to unlock them and list them for sale on the market. But then it'll be cut off. There's a certain amount that have been earned by the player base. There's no more. You can see how many that there are. And then new people coming into the game, they'll be able to earn the new cards, right? But if they want those older ones, they have to go buy them on the market. So again, it's more this like long-term focused play. And the reason behind that was because we saw there would be players that would like make bot armies and things that would just sort of farm these reward cards when they were able to be sold. So we kind of changed the system based on that. So it's not something you can just farm and then flip on the market immediately. It's more for building up your account over time and building up that value over potentially years down the road when those cards will be out of print and then theoretically much more valuable.
I see. Okay. So that's awesome that's another thing that you have figured out in the wild of running an ecosystem, an economy like this, where this is DeFi. You don't know what's going to happen with bots and people making contracts to try to mimic a user. Mm-hmm. And you have discovered this and put checks in place to make these soulbound cards. Which, do you want to explain again, what does a soulbound NFT or card mean?
It's just the same as any other card or NFT. It just can't be transferred or sold in any way. So it's just linked to your wallet, right? And you can use it to play on in your account, right? So it helps you earn more rewards by having these better cards in your account, but you can't just go flip them on the market.
Can you delegate them and rent them out to others?
They can't be in any way, shape, or form, given out or used by other people. Again, until that set goes out of print, and a new set replaces them as rewards, and then they'll be able to be unlocked and opened up to all that stuff.
Interesting. Good to know. And I'm guessing the different card types have limited supplies or runs.
Yeah, everything in the game is limited.
Awesome. That's very cool. Just like Magic the Gathering, essentially, or Pokemon cards. Even how many what holographic Charizards are there out there, and they're worth what, tens of thousands of dollars these days.
Right, and you don't necessarily actually know how many there are out there or anything like that. For sure, this is all very audible. And I shouldn't say that literally everything in the game is limited, but certainly all the cards are limited.
Right, and in this system, it shows you how many of the cards are in circulation.
Yeah, so. and that number will go down significantly over time, right? Because with that combining mechanic. So as people combine the cards, the circulation, and once the cards are out of print, the circulation will just go down and down and down and down over time. So they're very deflationary. So one of the things people look at is not only how many of those cards were created, but how many max level version of those cards can there ever be? And that's typically a very small number, often like 1,000 or less.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So the supply is deflationary because of the combining mechanism you've built in.
Yeah.
That's great. So that's fascinating right there, that you have a card game where the cards themselves are deflationary. And that's almost like in the real world with like Magic the Gathering or other collectibles. People are going to lose those cards, or they're going to get water damage from their apartment flooding or whatever. Those cards, they disappear from custodial error, if you will. I'm such a blockchain nerd. Is that how I talk these days?
I haven't heard that term before, custodial error, but I like it.
I think I just made it up. And that's my personal ownership.
This is like that on steroids, because we still have the custodial error problem, as you put it. You know, people stop playing the game, they forget about it, they lose their keys, whatever happens. But like on top of that, people who are active are encouraged to effectively burn the cards, to combine them all together, and some like hundreds, into one. So it's not just like, oops, I lost my keys and lost all these cards. It's I want a higher level version of this card, so I'm going to burn, 399 of them. So my 400th one is like a max level.
Right. Yeah. It's great. So there's an incentivized deflationary card mechanism in here that encourages people to burn down the supply of the cards as they try to combine them to level them up, make them more powerful and more valuable.
Yeah, you get in that screenshot you have at the top there, like you can see that the first one on the list there is a level 6 cards. And that BCX column just basically says how many cards have been like combined together into that one card. So there, that one's level 6. It's 62 cards have been combined together to get it to level 6. The ones below it are single cards that haven't been combined, and you can see the estimated value there. Shows the one is 62 times the individual card.
I love it. I love that. That's very clear and easy to understand. I think that's a very cool mechanism that you put into this. So there's so much. I mean, I don't want this AMA to go super long, but we could break down each one of these items, and maybe I'll bring you back on here for just that. But just a couple things I want to touch on while I have you here. For somebody to start playing the game right away, they need a summoner spell book. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, the summoner spell book is $10, and basically it's like the starter set or something, which is maybe a foreign concept for like free to play games. But like, if you want to play Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or something, you don't expect like, how can I just play it for free, right? They're real cards. They have value. So you buy the spell book, and that really like unlocks the actual game. It allows you to set up your wallet. It allows you to own the assets and NFTs. It allows you to earn, and it really just like kind of unlocks the game. And it's required because otherwise, we'd have huge Sybil attacks, like floods of bots and fake accounts that just come in to try to farm the easiest rewards. But there's actual value to having an account that can earn in this game. So you need the spell book to unlock that.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. And there is a free to play version, but you would not get rewards or tournaments or market trading or guilds. But if you have a spellbook account, then everything's unlocked.
Yeah, so it's like, it's a sort of like a trial. Like we don't expect people to just spend $10 not having even be able to like try out the game. But again, it's like people need to understand like this is not a free to play game. Everything has value. So you need to contribute value to make that work.
Right. Now, once they've got a summoner spellbook, they're able to have ranked matches and start playing and moving up the leaderboards. What in your opinion? So I always ask this question: what is the best strategy, in your opinion, to play Splinterlands? Because there's so much. I could just jump through each one of these different pieces of the game. But in your opinion, Matt, what do you think is the best strategy?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's hard to say because best strategy because people have lots of different goals. But I think, you mentioned like After Sound Gaming, for example, and I also agree, like highly recommend his videos. Like he shows a great strategy where you can come in and just like rent kind of really cheap cards. And if you know what you're doing, you can like parlay those into significant earnings and moving up really well. So that's a fantastic strategy. And I think that's one of those opportunities that's available now that's not going to be available in the future. That's one of the things where like right now we have a very hardcore player base and not a ton of new players coming in, again, because of the lack of like new player onboarding and promotion. So our existing player base, they mostly have their cards, right? They mostly have more than what they need and they're listing them for rent. We don't have a ton of new players coming in who are the ones who are renting the cards. So the rentals are pretty cheap relative to what you can get. And once we kind of work on that onboarding experience and we work on that marketing and promotion, I think, there's going to be a flood of new people who are going to be renting, right? And that's gonna eat through the rental market inventory real fast. And then rental prices are going to quickly go up to the level where you can't earn a ton from very cheap rentals. I mean, it's an arbitrage opportunity. It's basically what it is. So that's a fantastic way. And it's also a way for people to get in and really get a feel for the game without like spending a bunch of money buying packs, right? That can be daunting. It's like, I don't want to spend, thousands of dollars like buying all the cards I would need. Let me rent them for like a few dollars a day or whatever it is. And just like see if this whole thing is for me, really understand the ecosystem before then deciding. And a lot of times like, players, they come in, they do that. Then they're like, oh, wait. There's a lot here. There's a lot of value here. I want to be the ones renting the cards to other people, right? Not the other way around. So then they're like, okay, I want to buy the cards, but they know what they're doing at that point. They know what to buy and what to do again, which is, in my opinion, part of the game. So that's what I would recommend to people. It takes a while to learn how to do that, what cards to rent, how to rent. So like After Sound and other streamers are really good resources for that. And part of what we're working on with this new player onboarding experience is just making it dead simple. So like right now, you got to go into the market, you got to pick which cards you want to rent individually and all that. I want it to be, and it's going to be, in the relatively near future, that like new players are going to come in and we're just going to say, click here, it's $5 or whatever. And you just like, we just pick everything for you and you just rent like a whole set that like we've put together that is a good starting set. Right. So there's no even thought behind it. And that's when I feel like, that's when the big flood can come. All these new players hopefully are coming in and they don't have to figure all this stuff out yet. Or they don't have to necessarily watch After Sound or other streamers and spend hours trying to figure this out. They just click a button and boom, it's all in there. It's in the thing. But all that value is not going to our company. It's going to other people who are listing those cards for rent. But if you get in before that and you want to spend the time, you have an opportunity where there's a big, arbitrage opportunity, I think, between the rental market and what you can, value you can get out of those.
Absolutely. I thought that was, I was very surprised by that. Like, obviously, that's just what happens in a free market. So right now, there is an opportunity for new players to be able to rent decks that can get you up to the higher leagues where you start getting paid in ranked rewards with very little spending outlay. Like you could spend a very little amount to rent these decks and get very far up in the rankings in the leagues and start earning ranked rewards. And like you said, that's an arbitrage opportunity. That gap's going to probably close pretty soon, especially as more people on board. So if you're watching this part of the video, that's some very valuable alpha right there. You can get into Splinterlands and start making a profit right now if you do the strategy for however long. And in my opinion, I'm just strategizing here. You can use those rewards that you earn to start building your in-game assets and decks while you have this strategic opportunity, while you're kind of ahead all the new people that will be coming in during this bull run, especially with the big marketing campaign they're doing, you can start accumulating your game assets, your cards, and putting them to work. So you'll be positioned very well to start kicking all the new players' asses as they join the game.
or renting your cards to them.
Or renting your cards to them, exactly.
Yeah, that's the idea.
I love it. I love pointing out those opportunities for my audience. I'll also make sure on my live show, I'm going to break some of this down because people it's a little complicated to get started right now. So I might run people through how to set up a wallet on Hive and an account and jump in and just point out what Aftersound Gaming pointed out. So that way the YaBonks community can close that arbitrage opportunity for themselves.
Right. The arbitrage comes from information asymmetry, right? Like a lot of people come in and they're like, it's too complicated. It's too hard to figure all this stuff out. And so they don't do it. And that's why there's the opportunity. So for the people who, before our goal is to make it dead easy, right? So that doesn't happen anymore. But until then, the opportunity for people who want to put in the time or watch the content creators like yourself, it's there.
Absolutely. And I love that you're so open about it and everything. That's the beauty of this kind of game that you've created. It's so much is out of your control and it's in the player's hands. And that information out there where there is an opportunity in this ecosystem of this awesome game you've built, people can go over there with that specific knowledge, take advantage of it, maybe earn a little extra in the game compared to somebody who doesn't have that information yet. And eventually it all evens out. But that's the beauty of being a gamer with that knowledge and experience. So if you guys heard it here first, make sure to reach out in DMs and let me know, and you're welcome.
It's not even evens out. I mean, it's not. Yeah, the initial reaction is like, why am I telling people about this? Like, shouldn't I keep this secret or whatever? But no, I mean, I shouldn't. And anyone who's part of the ecosystem, it's beneficial for everybody. Like the more people that come in, the more people that put money into rent cards, that increases the value of those cards. And it's not a what's it called? Like a even win-loss system.
Right.
It's the value can be created for everybody together.
I absolutely agree. And this is mainly for new people onboarding into the game. There are two people joining the game at the same time. One person has this knowledge. Well, they might move up to the next couple leagues faster than that other person who doesn't have this strategic knowledge. And that's the beauty of gaming. Everything's gamified, and you can gain strategic advantages based on your knowledge, experience, and skills, and in-game assets. And this is just a way to have more capital efficiency in your actions in this game ecosystem, which I just think is brilliant. It's fascinating, and is why I love GameFi so much, because you don't really have this kind of stuff in traditional gaming. These opportunities don't exist. This is a whole nother level of gamification that doesn't exist in traditional games.
And it's part of the game. It's part of the fun, in my opinion, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of the whole reasons I like GameFi games, because to me, that's why I liked Second Life back in the day, because I could actually create a living making money in the game with things that I created and I was selling to other players. And there's that aspect to this here. But it's completely decentralized with true ownership on the blockchain. Now, speaking of the blockchain, why did you guys pick the HIVE blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, that's the main question we get asked all the time, because it is an unusual choice. A lot of people probably, listening may not have even heard of it. So first of all, we launched 5.5 years ago. So there were certainly not as many blockchains available at the time. But even today, I think it was the right choice. I feel like right now the focus is very blockchain centric. People, are involved in this chain or that chain, and they only want to play games on this chain or that chain. It's very important what chain it's on. But I think eventually, people won't know or won't care, right? They just want fun games, good products where they can own their assets and get all the benefits that they're looking for. It'll just be like when I watch Netflix, I'm not well, this is on Amazon Web Services and not, Microsoft Cloud or whatever. So I'm not using it. Or like, no one knows, no one cares. It's just like they get the shows they want to watch, right? And eventually, that's going to be the case, for all type of dApps. Eventually. So our focus was never on like what's the most popular blockchain or the one with the most like VC money or capital behind it or any of that. It was really like what's the one that gives the best experience for our players? Like what's the one that just makes it easy and drop dead simple to use this? Because like, I myself, like I'm a developer, I'm in the blockchain and crypto space, but this game was also built for like a lot of people I know who are just gamers. And they're not going to figure out how to set up MetaMask and buy ETH or whatever token to pay gas fees. So the Hive blockchain is a fork of what was originally the Steem blockchain, which is STEEM, no relation to the gaming platform STEAM. That's a fascinating story that could be a whole entire other podcast, but I'm not going to get into that now. But the point is, it was kind of like. It launched in 2016, I believe. So it was like Web3 before Web3 was a thing. And its entire focus was trying to be like a much more user-friendly, but still completely decentralized experience. And Hive, just so everyone knows, one of the things we like about it is that it is a completely community-run and owned chain. So it is one of the most decentralized blockchains that exists, as far as I know. There's no company, organization, foundation. There's no VCs. There's no pre-mines. There's no any of those pitfalls or things that so many of the other blockchains have. It's 100% community owned and operated, and it's super easy to use. It has no transaction fees. You just have to stake the token, and we, the Splinterlands team, can stake tokens in our wallet that we delegate automatically to players who come in. So you don't have to know anything about crypto. You don't have to buy any crypto. You don't have to pay gas fees. It's all kind of handled in the back end. Again, just like if I watch Netflix, I don't have to like buy Amazon Web Services credits and like figure out how to pay them for my bandwidth or whatever. Whenever I watch a video, I just pay Netflix my monthly fee. And it works. So it's the same thing here. You put money into the ecosystem generally, and you're able to use it, and it just works. Also, it has this thing called account abstraction by default. And this is sort of like a new thing that Vitalik's been talking about, and they're looking at implementing on Ethereum and other EVM chains that Hive has had for I guess 8 years now. And basically, it means that your wallet is not just a public-private key pair, but your wallet is like is this like kind of this concept that contains multiple public-private key pairs that are associated with it. So like YaBonks is actually my wallet address. It's not like an ENS name or anything. It is my actual wallet address. That's where you would send tokens to if you want to transfer Hive or Splinterlands stuff or cards or whatever to me. You send it to YaBonks, and associated with my wallet are multiple keys that have different levels of permissions. So when you go to play Splinterlands, you're just using one key, private key, to sign the transactions, to battle and do all those things, that has no access to your funds, right? So if that key gets stolen or whatever, or even you just want to give someone else access to play your account, like we talked about Scholars, like you can give them that private key, and it's okay. All they can do is play on your account. They can't actually steal any of your assets. And then there's a master key that can change those other keys. So your key got hacked, or you gave it to someone who you don't want to have it anymore. You can go and change those keys. And then there's also, even if your entire everything gets hacked, all of your keys, which happens. I mean, look, we can't expect people. I myself have gotten hacked, from some things on occasions. And I consider myself pretty knowledgeable about security and all these things. So it's going to happen, and it take a long time to get into all the details of how it works. But if anyone's interested, I'm happy to talk about it, or they can read about it. But there's a fully decentralized account recovery system that's built into the core Hive blockchain, that like you can lock all of your assets in Splinterlands. So even if all your keys get hacked and compromised, the attacker can only start unstaking your assets. You can even receive a notification that happened without your permission, and you can use the decentralized wallet recovery system to recover your wallet within 30 days and then stop the assets from being unstaked, change your keys to kick the hacker out, and you haven't lost anything. And we do this. I mean, like, it's not like a new theoretical thing. Like, this happens on a regular basis. We have people who get hacked, and we're able to help walk them through the recovery process, and they don't lose any of their assets, assuming they're like staked or locked in their account, like they should be. And to me, like, that's one of the most important things for any Web3 system. That it's just kind of crazy for me to think that, like, we've utilized on Hive for over 5 years now, and it's just starting to be like thought about and played around with, finally on other chains. So, again, overall, Hive, and we also talked about earlier the amount of transactions we're doing, right? Like, we've shown that we can easily do many millions of transactions on chain, and I think we can do easily like 10 to potentially even like 100x that. And the Hive blockchain doesn't skip a beat. I mean, we've gone through hard forks, we've gone through node issues, we've gone through everything. Like, we've been doing this for over 5 years. We are very confident that when the next bull run comes along, we can hugely increase our numbers, and everything's going to run. It's not going to break. We've been through all this before. It's not our first bull market and all this stuff. So, all these reasons why we're super happy with the Hive blockchain. But on the flip side is we lose out on the sort of free promotion that comes with being on Solana or being on whatever.
Right.
And that's all part of the same thing about why there's an opportunity now before we go out and really promote this thing. Like, there's still opportunity here, because even the blockchain platform that we're on is not one with like a bunch of VC money going out and promoting us.
Yeah, I love everything you just said about the Hive blockchain, and not only the throughput that they can handle and how well it's worked for GameFi in practice. In reality, but also the account abstraction, where you can abstract certain functions that allows you to have better key management. You have multiple keys for different actions and stuff, and Splinterlands can actually help you if you've been hacked and prevent you from losing assets, which is the biggest risk to decentralized games and self-custody of in-game assets. People can no longer, email support of the game company and be like, hey, help me, I've been hacked. Can you do something about it? No, sorry, this is on chain, like, this is decentralized. However, you guys can, because you went with something that is years ahead of the times in terms of this feature, which Hive blockchain has, and now other major blockchains like Ethereum, like Vitalik, is now talking about incorporating this into Ethereum. And it just shows, good ideas like that, once they're proven to work, they start getting incorporated into everything. So it's awesome. You guys are kind of leading the pack in terms of security for in-game assets that players own.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify and make sure people understand, when you say that, like, we can help you if you get hacked, recover your things, that doesn't mean like we are like a custodian and we have your keys and we can just do things on your account. It just means we can walk you through the process, the decentralized process. Like, we don't have any control of your account, but we can help just walk you through the process that exists as part of the Hive blockchain to recover it on your own.
Right. So this is built into the blockchain, and you just walk people through how to do this. So Hive has these protections already built in.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So that's why you went with Hive. Now, I noticed you can also use other blockchains. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, so the game runs on Hive, but again, since a lot of people don't know about Hive and they're coming from other places, I mean, our goal generally is to have the Splinterlands assets be available on as many different chains and like NFT platforms and things as possible. So, for example, the tokens are tradable on Uniswap and on currently BNB Smart Chain, and we're looking into other chains in the future. So if you use the Ethereum or BNB Smart Chain and you want to get into the Splinterlands ecosystem, it should be pretty easy. You can buy the tokens there. You can bridge them into the game, into your Hive wallet pretty seamlessly, and then you can use them. And I look at all these other platforms and blockchains as sort of like stores, and we just want to get our assets in as many stores as possible. And that's part of our like promotional and marketing efforts that we're going to be doing over the next year or so, is like just getting involved with all those things. We do also have a PFP NFT collection on Ethereum that you can get on OpenSea called Rooney, which I think is in the docs here at some point. So again, I'll just talk about that real quick. It's a PFP project like a Bored Ape or a CryptoPunk or whatever, but you can stake it, you can lock it in your Ethereum wallet, and then you get the equivalent card in the game. So normally in a trading card game, like you mentioned, like a Charizard in Pokemon, like, yeah, they're rare, but a lot of people have them and they're all the same, right? Other than maybe their condition or something. But here, the Rooney, if you bring your Rooney into the game, you get that card, but it looks like your unique Rooney. So it's like if you had a Charizard, but yours wasn't blowing fire, it was blowing like purple bubbles or something, and whatever. So it's the first time I'm aware of where you can have a card that they're all like completely unique one of ones in a trading card game, and you can sort of show that off. And that's just an example of how we try to like integrate with lots of other blockchains and blockchain platforms. There's also the Wax blockchain, which is big for gaming and NFTs. So we have a bridge to that. A lot of people think Splinterlands actually runs on the Wax blockchain because they go there, they buy the NFTs and the assets, they bring them into the game and they play with them, but they don't even realize that it's not happening on the Wax blockchain behind the scenes. And I think that's exactly what we're going for. Like, people shouldn't have to know. They should be able to use whatever platform they like, whatever crypto tokens they like, and be able to participate here. And behind the scenes, yeah, it runs on the Hive blockchain, but you don't even have to know about that.
I love that. I love that people don't even have to know what blockchain they are on while they're playing this game. They don't even have to understand it. They don't have to care about it. They just create a Splinterlands account, get a spell book, and they are off to the races. None of that technical stuff matters. And I also think that's the way blockchain tech is going, where it's just happening underneath. We don't even realize it's there. We don't know what chain we're on. It doesn't really matter unless you're, a techie into that kind of stuff. So that's so cool that you guys are already at that point with this game where players play this. They don't even have to realize what blockchain they're on, which is brilliant. So if you do have assets in like Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain, you can use those assets to bridge over and play and acquire in-game assets with your crypto that's already out there in your other accounts on other blockchains. So you have that functionality still if you're an advanced DeFi user. However, for most gamers, they don't even have to care about that. They can just go to Splinterlands.com and just click play now, create an account, and they're off to the races, right?
Yep, that's it, and that's what we've been going for.
I love it. I think it's brilliant. I think all games are going to go that way eventually, but most games are a little in the weeds with the blockchain technology, and it makes it confusing for new players or players who just want to play the game. They don't care about the DeFi stuff. But this way, you've really abstracted that stuff out to a degree where they don't even have to realize it's happening. They just play the game. They have the great experience, and they just have their deck of cards, their collections building. They have their in-game assets that they're earning. And at some point, if they want to cash out into some other form of value, then they can have that exposure to the rest of DeFi.
Yeah, it's in that direction. It's sort of a great gateway into the whole ecosystem. Like there's a lot of people in the game that I've heard like anecdotally say like they weren't into crypto or any of this stuff. They played Splinterlands, and that was their entryway into learning about all this stuff and getting involved.
That is awesome. I think that's super cool. And that's something that I try to do is educate people on DeFi. And to me, this is a beautiful gateway that's fun. They can earn some crypto while they're just having fun playing. And then they can take that and go participate in other DeFi platforms if that's what they choose to do with the assets that they've accrued and now own themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, you have documentation here for your different tokens. You have Dark Energy Crystals, DEC. You have Splintershards, SPS. And you can trade these through different decentralized exchanges. And you can also stake these assets or provide liquidity for them to earn to earn money. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want, we could talk a little bit about the tokenomics behind the thing, because that's another area where I think is really actually innovative with what we're doing. So, and again, like myself and the other people in the organization, like we just live on this stuff. So we're not just like, what's the minimum? Just throw out a token and you stake it like normal. We're degens to the highest degree. We try every different thing we can get our hands on, and we're like, this can be integrated into Splinterlands. This would be so cool if it worked in this situation. So, one of the things we set up, there's the Splintershards token you mentioned. That's the governance token and the earning token in the system. So as you play, the better you do, the more of SPS you're going to earn, and you stake it. And that's, the more you stake, the more you get. And also that gives you your voting power in the DAO. That does actually have like significant, there's like many proposals that happen kind of on a regular basis that you can actually be a part of and change kind of the course of how things go. But then the DEC token is actually our in-game, sort of stable coin. I say sort of stable coin in that, like, I'm very fascinated by stable coins. I think that's one of like a huge, awesome use case for crypto and blockchain in general. And there's kind of two different basic versions of stable coins. They're ones that are backed by some other asset, whether it's dollars, treasuries, Bitcoin, ETH, whatever. And then there's algorithmic stable coins. And we've seen algorithmic stable coins don't work so well so far. But we actually have sort of inadvertently stumbled into, over the past 5 years, what I think is kind of a new and unique and potentially better way to do a stable coin. Now, obviously, our DEC is not backed by any we don't like hold dollars in a wallet or Bitcoin or anything. It's backed by Splinterlands products. So what that means is that all of the products in Splinterlands that you can buy, you can purchase for fixed amounts of DEC tokens or the equivalent amount of dollars. So a pack right now in the game would cost $4, and you could pay with actual dollars using PayPal or Bitcoin or ETH, $4 per pack, or 4,000 dark energy crystals. So it's 1,000 dark energy crystals per dollar. But the thing is, even if the value of dark energy crystals falls on the market, and when you showed the price, it was like, 0.95. It's a little below that, right? So there's an opportunity. There's a little bit of an arbitrage opportunity. If you want to buy packs, you could pay $4, or you could get it like 5 cents on the dollar cheaper if you purchase it with 4,000 dark energy crystals, right? And that price stays. It's not as stable as like USDT or something, but if it drops lower than that, all of a sudden you just get a bigger discount on Splinterlands assets. And there's always a certain level where it's going to be a big enough discount where people are going to want to buy it, right? So it stays relatively stable, not exactly stable, but relatively stable. And then on the upside, there's like tons of things you use DEC for in the game. So sometimes there's extra people want to buy more on the market, and it might go over 1,000 per dollar. It might go higher than that. And then you can just burn SPS tokens and mint more DEC. So that's another arbitrage opportunity. If there's extra demand for DEC, people who own SPS tokens, or people can just go buy SPS tokens and burn $1 worth of SPS tokens for 1,000 DEC. New DEC is minted. That keeps the price again stable, and all the value essentially goes into SPS. So it's really, the game is set up in such a way where pretty much all of the value from everything that's purchased, whether it's card packs or cards on the market, or there's a bunch of different things in the game. All that value eventually goes into the SPS token through this kind of mechanism, and we get the benefit also of having a relatively stable coin to price everything in the game. If we price things in SPS tokens, right, either it's a fixed amount of SPS tokens, so if the market goes crazy, then all of a sudden everything's ridiculously more expensive and new players coming in are like, I can't afford any of this, or we have to use like price feeds and everything for it, and it gets really complicated. So by having a again relatively stable coin, it makes it much easier for people. They know I need this amount of dark energy crystals to buy this thing, and they know roughly how much that's worth, and it's always going to be worth roughly that amount. And there's opportunities for the arbitragers and the traders, but for like the regular people, they're not going to care about like a little few percent here and there. And then on our markets, everything is priced in DEC also. So it's not a situation where you like list something on OpenSea and then the value of ETH drops, 50% the next day, and all of a sudden you sold it for half the amount you thought you were going to, right? That's just not a good experience for non-degen crypto people. So again, everything's priced in this relatively stable token. And if you list your thing and it's like $1, 1,000 DEC, like it's always going to be roughly that. It's not going to be like crazy different for the most part. And so it just makes an easy and understandable experience for players. But the tokenomics all work to benefit the people who get and hold SPS, because all that value ultimately goes to the SPS token.
Right. So that's a fascinating tokenomics ecosystem you've built, because it's something that you've built over experience running an in-game ecosystem like this on the blockchain for 5 years now, where you've now developed almost a stable coin that obviously presents arbitrage opportunities to get things at a discount. But this keeps in-game assets priced relatively stably, in a stable fashion, where you can potentially get some discounts by buying those dips, bringing it back up to peg, if you will. And that's a way people can kind of get the in-game currency at a discount. Like if you buy it when it's at 95 cents, or like 0.00095 right now, it's about 5% under peg. You're getting a 5% discount. And if you want to kind of load up on your in-game credits, if you will, your in-game money, dark energy crystals, you could buy these at a discount and just kind of stack them up and then use them when you need to buy stuff in the game. That's a really cool way to do it. And it also, everything goes back to supporting the SPS token, Splintershards, which is your governance token that people use to vote with. And this is also paid out as rewards for in-game activities. And this is the token that I was talking about early on in the AMA that I am speculating on as a GameFi investor. I might throw, I don't know, I won't go too much into it, but I'll probably chuck 1% of my altcoin portfolio into Splintershards, just on my thesis that, based on the price action over the past 3 months and what I'm thinking is going to happen over the next 2 years, I could potentially see 2, 3, 4, 5x maybe, and beyond if things go very well. That's just my opinion based on the circulating supply and everything in the price action right now. Now, how inflationary is Splintershards? Because obviously you pay out probably a set of daily rewards over the whole system. That's you have the math in here for everything. It might be a little over some people's heads, the reward shares math, but how inflationary is Splintershards itself?
Yeah. Again, you can go to sps.splintershards.com or splinterlands.com to get the white paper and see all the details. There's a total supply, like a max supply of 3 billion SPS tokens. I think we're at something around 1.2 billion of those have been minted so far. And those are the tokens that the rest are the ones that are going to be given out over the next, I think, 3 or so years for different various things in the game. And these are the things that the DAO also controls and votes on, right? So the DAO has complete control over that. If they feel like the tokens should be used to incentivize liquidity more or less, or different things in the game, or vice versa, that's what, by holding and staking those tokens, you get to decide. But based on the current situation, as listed in the white paper, there's a max of 3 billion tokens. So there's we're almost halfway there. So I guess the inflation, it reduces naturally over time as there's more in circulation compared to a smaller amount being given out. And then it's going to end, again, in about 3 years, I think, maybe 2.5. And for that, a large portion of not only the inflation, but the tokens that are spent go to the DAO wallets, which are controlled by the token holders. And then the thinking is that once the new inflation ends, the new token inflation ends, and we hit the 3 billion cap, the DAO will vote to utilize some of their tokens to continue to provide rewards in the game. So and then the DAO also, anytime someone buys a pack in the game, the DAO gets the earnings. And when people buy things in the game, the DAO earns from that also. But the goal is to create a sustainable system where people put money into the game and into the ecosystem. A portion of that goes to the DAO, and then the DAO uses that in order to make the rewards, which incentivize more people to put money into the game. So it's no more tokens will need to be issued, but it creates an actual sustainable system where rewards are paid out and money comes in.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's great that you have the DAO involved in these decisions as well, and you also have a form of recycling that is non-inflationary with the SPS tokens going back to the DAO to then be used in the future as the DAO decides and sees fit. So that way, the main stakeholders and players and contributors will be able to say, hey, we should use some of these SPS tokens for developing this feature, or increasing rewards for this play to earn feature, or for additional marketing or development, or whatever it is. I think that's a great way to do it. There's a 3 billion total supply, max supply right there, and you guys are at a total supply currently of 1.26 billion, so almost halfway there, which that's great. If if this has been out for 5 years.
Well, the token hasn't. The game has, but the token was introduced in the summer of 2021. So 2.5 years for the token.
Okay, that makes more sense with this 65 months I see here in the token allocation table. Okay, so we've got 2 years of SPS token out in the wild. It's released 1.26 billion of the supply out of 3 billion max supply. So over the next 3 years or so, we'll see the rest of the tokens enter into the ecosystem, which is not much, which is the token supply doubling from where it's at now. That is not much at all. Especially if you're looking at market cap, doubling of the supply just means the market cap has to double for it to be where it's at. But if I'm looking at a GameFi play into a bull run, I'm looking for 5, 10, 20 X's here. So 2X to me is nothing. So from there, going another few X's above that is still within my personal thesis for an investment into SPS from where it's at now, especially with these numbers here on the dashboard. 50,000 daily players approximately, and currently on a brand new marketing campaign to onboard more players as we go into the bull run. I'm very excited about this personally. And by the way, nobody can make me say this stuff. This is my own opinion. If I thought this would inflate to 0, I would let you guys know that. But I am looking at this as a very viable addition to my GameFi portfolio. I'm not going to go all in or anything crazy like that, but I might throw 1% of my altcoin portfolio into Splintershards. And then I also might put it to work in staking, just so that way, while it's sitting there for the next 2 years before I decide to take profit at the peak of the bull run, which I'll DCA out at that point. This is just what I would do, by the way, full disclosure. I would probably just throw it in here. Why wouldn't I? I'd throw it into this staking pool. I don't even know what it would earn, but if I'm earning a few extra percent per year and compounding my tokens, then it would be stupid for me not to. And yeah, that's my plan. What do you think of my plan, Matt?
Yeah, again, not going to go into specifics of like token and price and all that stuff, but generally I'm always very supportive of, going into projects that you think are good. And, you've obviously taken the time to learn about it and know what you're getting into. And then I'm always for, taking profits. I think I'm not one to say, even though I love Splinterlands and I think it's a great project, obviously, since I'm building it. I still think it's a good idea to take profits. I would probably do the same thing. It's just part of being successful in these type of markets.
Yeah, and what I would probably do, because I think Splinterlands is going to be around for a long time. You guys already have a 5-year track record, and that's a lifetime in DeFi, and you've only had massive success in that time, and your game is awesome. Everything you've told me, everything I've seen so far, everything I've heard from the community members and my own friends that play this game and make really good money playing it, I personally am bullish on this. This is my personal opinion. This is my objective analysis, by the way. Yes, I like Matt. I like them. This is a sponsored interview and everything for my time. However, my personal opinion is I like this game. I think it's very promising. I think you guys have an incredible player base already, and I think you're only going to snowball strongly into the bull run, and I think your token is set up right now. Like, if you zoom out, you guys are at, like, the perfect spot, in my opinion. Like, this is what all the GameFi tokens look like, by the way, that have been around through this bear market. Right here is where I'm picking stuff up right now. And if I go back into the 3 months, as everything started kicking off in November, like, you guys already like 2 or 3x'd, and now you've come back down to the where I think is a good level for the next leg up. Obviously, this is only relevant to this point in time. If you're watching this 5 or 6 months from now, things are probably going to change. Ask me in my DMs what I think about it in 6 months for that. But I don't ever give financial advice. This is just what I do, what I'm looking to do. But so a lot of people like when I share what my plays are going to be. I'm looking for GameFi stuff. You guys have a game that has proven the test of time. You have tweaked your tokenomics and your whole economy in a beneficial manner for everybody involved. And I think with your leadership and your plan that you laid out earlier in the AMA, I think this thing is primed to explode. Just my opinion. I could be wrong, yada, 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 but we're going into a bull run here. You guys have one of the best games in town. And I think this is a sweet entry point. If you would have came to me in November, I'd have been even happier. But this to me is kind of proof that the bull run is kicking off. This is the first little bump in the road before things start going parabolic in the whole market. And I'm assuming you guys are going to get pulled up with it, especially since you have exposure and liquidity pools on Ethereum, on BSC, on Tron, I think even on Steam, on Hive. You're on all these different blockchains. This token, I think, is going to do great. And especially if you're actually playing this game, if you have time to play this game, like I said, I am spread too thin. I'll probably just buy some assets and rent them out or stake them here and just come and collect my rewards and compound them and do what my friend did a couple years back when he made a killing and is still making a killing. I'm just going to kind of copy what he's doing But if you're actively playing this, you can get way further ahead than I could if you're getting ranked rewards and loot chests and all this stuff every day, earning extra Splintershards tokens and cards. Keep in mind, my friend I think he made the most on the actual cards themselves. So think of this like Magic the Gathering on the blockchain, but way cooler, if you ask me, because this is super. I mean, this is amazing tech. At the end of the day, so yeah, my friend has a sweet collection. He makes a killing on it, and he earns tons of rewards as well. I'm going to go that route. I'm just going to own in-game assets that I think are going to appreciate in value, and I'm going to put them to work to earn more in-game assets and build some wealth in the game that way, even as a passive participant in this economy. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's built for all those different things, right? So there's opportunities for passive people investors who don't play the game. There's opportunities for avid gamers who don't have much to invest, and everywhere in between. That's part of what's cool about it. So you kind of pick your lane and go for it.
You got me so excited. I want to talk. I want to do all the things, but I know I only have so much time. If if I had a couple hours each month to game, I would be probably playing this game. I don't really know any other GameFi games right now that are this exciting to me in terms of actual gameplay. That's me saying a lot to you, Matt. That's a huge compliment.
I appreciate it.
By the way, I don't just say that to anybody out here. I've interviewed a bunch of GameFi developers, and most of them don't even have anything to show yet. Whereas you're coming in here locked and loaded with an amazing game. You got me excited. The green tea and the coffee are hitting me hard. You got me bullish, Matt. You did a good job here. And I think anybody who watches this whole thing is probably pretty excited about Splinterlands if they're not already. So with that being said, who else is on the team? So it can't just be you, right? I know you mentioned some of the team members earlier. Who else is on the team?
Yeah, certainly not just me. So I have a co-founder. He goes by Agrode, his in-game name. He's helped build this company and the business and the game all along the way. He's currently focused on, like, our company is also doing other projects and other games and things. So he's kind of heading up that part of the things, and I'm focusing on Splinterlands in particular. We have Patrick, who is our CTO. Also just like really, been in the crypto space, DeFi, very experienced developer, really has helped like take the tech and get to the scaling that we've shown, and the millions of transactions a day on chain, and all these like integrations with other platforms. You talked a lot about the art and the lore and the creative aspect. So Nate Agia is our creative director. He was actually our first hire in the company in 2019.
Nice.
And he, obviously it's not all him. He has a great team of people. I can't go through everybody, but he's the one behind all the cinematics and all the Vonak. Yeah. He will be very happy to hear, everything you've said.
I don't know why I did the Vulcan sign. I don't know what
seems appropriate. Yeah.
It seems appropriate. Yeah.
So yeah, him and his team came up with all that. I mean, we have about like 30 or so full-time people in the organization, so I can't go through all of them. A lot of them, like I said, they were our players, right? And they were just like, we want to be a part of this thing. So it's one of the cool things is like these people are not just like random people who need a job and we just hire them. These are people who they just love this. So and they cross over with everything. So our developers, they're also players, and they give all kinds of ideas to the creative team, and the creative team are also players, and they come up with all the ideas of like, not necessarily how to build things, but like, game economy ideas or what we should build and do. So like, that's what we try to build on this team. It's like everyone we bring on, I just want people who legitimately like love this. And like, cause if, even if it wasn't a job for me, like this is what I would be doing, like regardless of what happens, with my financial situation, like I'd be like, yeah, I want to create a game like this. That's why I did it. So, that's the team at a high level. And then we have some people that are also more on the business side, kind of behind the scenes, but are also players too.
Very cool. I think that's the best way to do it. You're bringing on people that actually love the game to build the game. And those are the people who know what the player at the end of the day would want most in the game because they are the player.
Yeah.
I love that. And I've listened to those town halls, a couple of them, and everybody's very passionate, highly intelligent. I think you've assembled an awesome team. And it's really a wonderful thing you put together here. Now, in terms of like due diligence stuff, I know you guys are huge. You've been around for 5 years, so this might seem kind of silly. But do you guys have like any of the team wallets or the DAO wallet on multi-sigs or anything like that?
Yeah. So the DAO wallet in particular is that has across a few different blockchains that it has assets. They're multi-sig on the ones that support that. One of the things is that the Hive blockchain that we're built on is actually not a smart contract chain. So we've like the entire system that the game operates on is one that we've built ourselves. So it's a sort of it's a custom built system. So everything is still published and public and verifiable on the Hive blockchain, but the actual like smart contract and processing of everything is our own system. And we're working on open sourcing different pieces of that, like the SPS token and all the tokenomics around it that we're going to allow anyone to run that software independently and sort of have it be its own chain. It's referenced as SPS chain in the white paper. That's something we're in the process of building and launching.
Interesting.
I just want to be clear for everyone, like that's the situation. So right now, a lot of this is still somewhat centralized in that we run and operate sort of the smart contracts on top of the Hive blockchain. And we're working on, making sort of like our own layer 2 on top of Hive that is all open source and independently verifiable, but that's still a work in progress right now. So all the in-game like system wallets and DAO accounts are managed by that system, and it sort of works a little differently than your traditional like Ethereum multi-sig.
Okay, now I have to ask because you've got me intrigued in this hypothetical future Splintershards blockchain, SPS blockchain that you guys have in the works. Would the Splintershards tokens be used in that blockchain?
Yeah, so again, it's like going to be a layer 2 built on Hive. So all the transactions would still happen on the Hive blockchain, and we would still utilize, like, we're not really building an entire blockchain from scratch. It's really like a smart contract layer on top of Hive. And yeah, the SPS token would be the main token. So it would be like a delegated proof of stake system, which is similar to Hive or EOS or Tron. In fact, Hive was one of the pioneers of actually that system of governance. Like EOS was built by Dan Larimer, who was the same one of the creators of Hive. So Hive sort of like was the precursor to a lot of these. So the SPS chain will be the same way, and the native token of that will be the SPS token. But you would still use a Hive wallet and use the Hive tokens for the bandwidth and everything on the base chain. So it's a little bit of a hybrid, I guess you could say.
So the SPS token would have some utility in there, though, in terms of like staking for proof of stake or.
Yeah, 100%. So it would be like the smart contract system, and Hive would be the base layer system. Would
you issue any new SPS tokens, or would it be those 3 billion still?
No, it's in the white paper. This is all laid out, and there's token emissions. Even now, before it's actually released, you can purchase a validator node. And again, that burns. It either burns the tokens or it goes to the DAO, but it's like not paying to the company. It just all goes into the DAO if you buy one of these validator nodes. And you actually just earn by just holding and staking the validator node and doing nothing else right now. You can earn from that reward pool. And then once the actual chain launches, you would be able to actually run the software, or even like, pool with someone else running the software to actually perform the validation and earn the tokens that way.
And it would be those 3 billion tokens still that are out there.
Still out of the 3 billion tokens.
Oh my
it's not
gosh.
extra being added.
So that adds a whole nother dimension to my investment hypothesis on SPS. And instead of just a GameFi play, now it's potentially a layer 2 blockchain token with utility as well, with validator nodes that you could get right now. So, man, I've got to really rethink my whole hypothesis and my risk reward ratio here, and recalculate some things. That's awesome information. My head's spinning right now, man.
Yeah, it's like that's 5 years of us going and watching what's happening in all these other projects and ecosystems and being like, yeah, this is what we should do here, and taking the parts of it that work well and integrating it.
Man, that's fascinating. And it's incredible that what you've done on Hive blockchain, by the way, with like already proof of millions of transactions per day just for Splinterlands on Hive blockchain. So, and gas free. The player pays $0 in gas fees because you guys are staking a whole bunch of Hive tokens to generate the Hive power or whatever that the players would use in the game, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. So yeah, and you don't have to rely on us. It's not like you're dependent on us. You can get your own staked Hive, and you don't need us at all. But it's like a service we provide to the people who don't want to have to do that. So again, it's like the perfect balance, in my opinion, of like, it's decentralized. You can do it yourself. You don't have to rely on us or need permission from us at all. But we're able to still like handle it for all the people who don't want to get to that level.
That's amazing right there, because a lot of times people in the GameFi space, I come from this as an interviewer who interviews GameFi developers and analyzes games, and I have other YouTubers that are like even more into GameFi than me. And one of the things they talk about is at some point, maybe the game rewards are less than the amount of gas that they're paying to play the game.
Yeah.
And economically, it doesn't make sense to keep playing the game, even if it's fun. And you guys have taken care of that.
Right. And some of the games in that position, they just take a lot of the stuff off chain, right? To avoid the gas fees. I'm like, well, that defeats the whole purpose, right? It's like, yes, okay, the NFTs are on chain and the tokens, but then you just have a centralized game. But we have everything on chain. That's why there's so many transactions. And this is the only way we could do that.
That's brilliant. So you guys really have like led the way here in terms of fully decentralized gaming. I really haven't heard of a solution as well-rounded as this, and as robust in actual production, in a live production environment like you guys, with this many transactions. Like you just said, you have more transactions than the entire Ethereum blockchain in a given day, potentially, just from your game.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, so my whole investment thesis for SPS token has completely changed, man. I really got to look into this, spend some time, because I'm going to be talking about this on my live shows and kind of telling people. I tell people what I do. That's what my whole channel's about. I'm an open book. I can't help but tell people what I'm doing, and that's why that information asymmetry with those arbitrage opportunities, I close those all the time. I'm like, oh, I found this liquidity pool that I'm farming for 500% APY. You guys should all get into it. And then the next day it's like 100% APY. And I'm like, whoops, sorry, there goes $20 million TVL into that. My bad. And that's the kind of stuff, like, I'd probably be better just shut my mouth and like taking the rewards rather than telling all my followers and viewers, but whatever, I can't help it. And I'm going to tell them what my plan is with each of my altcoins in my portfolio and my FPS token. I'm going to throw, 1% of my altcoin portfolio at it. But now my thesis has changed. Why am I doing this? Well, Splinterlands is an awesome game. I think it's at a perfect inflection point with where you guys are taking this thing and how you're doing the marketing and onboarding and going into the bull run. But also, it's going to be the utility token, the staked token, and the proof of stake type system for validator nodes for the SPS blockchain, layer 2 blockchain. We barely broke down the mechanisms of the game. Like, we've been talking for 2.5 hours, and we barely scratched the surface.
And there's like an entire other piece, which is our land expansion, which is called The Secret of Praetoria. So this is another problem that came up from like Magic and those type of cards. So we talked about like you get all these duplicate cards that you can't use in the Splinterlands. You can combine them and level them up. So that's cool. There's another problem is like Splinterlands, like all these games, we release new sets of cards on a regular basis, right? So there's still like these old, like the alpha and beta, like the old cards, and like the old cards, like the first couple sets, like those always maintain their value just as collector's items. But then there's still like, as the years go on, again, we're in year 5. Well, I guess we're in our 6th year. It is like, there's a lot like these sets in between that are just like, again, they're worthless, in a lot of these games, because you always just want the latest and greatest, and there's power creep and all this stuff. So we're like, well, how do we have a digital platform? We can do all sorts of cool things. How do we solve for this? So that's where the land expansion comes in. We're adding new types of cards to the game called item and spell cards. So right now there's the summoner and the units that we talked about. There's going to be these new item and spell cards that are going to be, again, that second battle stage after you see your opponent's team and your team, and you can like cast spells and equip item and change how the battle plays out at that point. These cards we're not going to sell. They're never going to be sold in packs. You craft them through owning land. And the workers on the land are going to be the old cards in the game. So the idea is you take all your old cards, instead of having them sit in boxes in your basement or sit in your wallet collecting virtual dust, they're your workers on your land, and they produce these new exclusive cards that you can then sell to new players coming into the game, because land is very limited. There's not a lot of it. So new players coming into the game, like they're not going to be getting into land at all for a while. They're just going to want to rent cards off the market or buy them to play the game. So all the item and spell cards that they rent or buy are going to be from people who crafted them on land using their old cards. So it's a land expansion. It's going to be a whole full-fledged like resource management, empire building type game. We're in like early stages of it now as we are building it out. But that's the whole idea, which I just think is so cool. There's like an actual economic value at the end of it. It's not just try to get to the best to show off and say what you have. Like, you will actually be creating these new assets that new players in the game will need to buy. And you use your old cards to do it. So like all the cards in the game maintain value through this system.
Oh, that's awesome. So if I understand this correctly, you can buy land, which is very rare. There's a limited amount. So it's going to be literally a land grab. Someone's going to get a piece of land, and then they're going to take their old cards that would normally pile up in boxes or just be combined until they finally get to a certain level that's worth it. But they could take these workers that would be essentially worthless, these cheap, the throwaway cards, if you will. They put them onto their land as workers. And then those workers generate items in the game that you can't get any other way. Like super rare cards, different things like that.
It's a whole new type of card that doesn't even exist in the game right now.
What type of card is that?
Items and spells. So right now there's like the summoners and the unit cards that we were looking at, and there's going to be a totally new type of NFT that's going to be added into the game. 2 new types: items and spell cards, NFTs.
I see.
That the only way you can get is creating from land. So all the new players who come in and they need to get these cards for their normal playing, they got to buy them from you if you're a landowner.
So they can't get them from decks. They can't.
Not from packs, yeah. They
can't get them from packs. They have to get them from the secondary marketplace, from landowners.
Exactly.
Interesting. So landowners are really going to have a competitive advantage there in terms of in-game assets. So if somebody has some assets, they might want to get some land in this case, and then put all of their old cards that are, they don't have a use for, to work as workers to generate these new items every day. Now, so what else does land generate? Is it just these items and spell cards?
Well, no. So land, it's going to be like a full-fledged game by itself. So we've kind of been releasing the white paper for that, and like different phases and things. So
Yeah.
it's not just simply like you stake some cards on land and poof, these things come out. Like it's going to be a full resource management game. Yeah, so this like full resource management game that we're building, which is the expansion we're calling the Secret of Praetoria. It's going to be another game within a game, basically. So it's not just a simple like you take these old cards, you throw it on some land plots, and poof, these new cards come out. Like we're not just like trying to just do a simple game facade over a basic DeFi mechanism. We're building an additional game, which is also a sort of like, I don't know if it fits exactly into an existing game genre, but it takes a lot of ideas from like the Clash of Clans type of thing, where you have all these different buildings that produce all these different resources. Not the fighting part of it. We already have our battling part of the game, but this is like that whole like land and resource management part. And as you put up on the screen, this is kind of our flow chart of what we're building and how it's all going to work. So it's pretty complex. There's going to be like 50 some different resources, 30 some different buildings that you'll be able to build. And each land plot will only be able to have one building on it. So players, we have a lot of players who have a lot of land plots. Some people have entire regions, which are 1,000 land plots that they'll be managing. And each land plot has different rarities. It has a map of a whole continent and all the regions. And so the land plots have different rarities, and they have different like terrains, forests, mountains, lakes, whatever. They may have special magical resources that are present that you can mine. So if you have a mountainous plot, you could build a mine on it to get ores, and then you would need all these different resources to upgrade your mine to higher levels and get higher rarity ores. And then some people will build, like refineries to take ores and refine them into metal bars that can then be used for things. And it's like, so this whole big system, and players will basically be building their own in-game businesses kind of. And the end product is going to be these new cards that I talked about, the item and spell cards. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom. So a lot of people may not actually produce the item and spell cards themselves, right? They may be one part of the supply chain. And I look at this like a real world supply chain thing. Like if you're, buying something at the store, even like a loaf of bread, there's a farmer that makes the wheat, and then there's a mill that like mills the wheat, and then there's probably they need an oven that they bake it in, and the packaging and the shipping and like all these things. So it's like the same thing here. It's like this whole long supply chain process, and like players, based on what type of land they have and like their strengths and weaknesses, can like kind of pick their niche within this whole system, and they'll ultimately, like at the end of the day, whoever decides to craft the item and spell cards on their land plots will sell those in the market, and they'll get money. They'll use a portion of that to buy more of the resources they need to craft those item and spell cards from someone else who produces them. So the money kind of from those end products trickles through the system, just like the farmer, making the grain isn't the one selling the bread at the grocery store, but they're getting the value from those eventual sales. So it's it's going to be a really intricate and cool system. And the whole idea also is players are going to be able to provide, we're going to have like our own internal AMM liquidity markets for this. So like you might produce these different resources, and you can just build storage buildings on your land to just store them and then put them in these liquidity markets. And every resource, there's going to be like 50 or so of them, are going to be paired against the DEC token. So that's going to be, so if like someone is like, oh, I'm producing a lot of wood, but I need stone, they'll just trade it on the market, and it'll trade the wood for DEC and then the DEC for stone in one, atomic transaction, with fees going to the liquidity providers. And that's how this whole like ecosystem will work. But the cool thing is that's going to be a huge new use case for DEC, right? There's going to be like massive amounts of DEC that are going to have to be paired with all of these new resources in these internal liquidity pools. And, that DEC, like players are going to buy it off the market, right, at whatever price, or they can burn SPS to get it. So again, like whenever people need DEC, since it's a relatively stable token, like basically all that value goes to the SPS token. So again, like this entire ecosystem is designed for the value to go to the SPS token. And you're also going to need DEC to upgrade the buildings. So you'll need like wood planks and lumber and metal bars and all these things to upgrade your buildings, and DEC tokens. And you also need to stake DEC. That's like the power source that the worker cards use on your land. So like players, that's already live in the game right now. Players can like put worker cards on land and earn a small subset of the resources, and they need DEC to do that. So that's been a huge use case for the token, and all the value again goes into SPS. That's a part of the reason also for the like large rise in SPS that you saw in the chart over the last few months, was like this is all starting to go live. And people needed all this DEC, and then it didn't exist. So you need to burn SPS in order to get it.
And when you burn SPS, is that like a true burn? Does it get sent to a null void address?
Yeah,
or does it
true
go...
burn. Null,
okay,
void,
cool.
gone, and you get a 1,000 DEC. You burn $1 worth of SPS. And so, one of the other cool things, if you flip back to the flow chart there and scroll down a little bit more, there's really two things that you can do. So the one was all the way at the bottom, was creating the new cards. And the second thing is this secret of Praetoria. If you go up there, so it's called the secret of Praetoria. There is an actual secret that players can work to unlock. So there's two different ways that you can go. And again, it's similar. Like there's some players who just want to produce assets they can sell and earn. And there's some players who are more just into the game of it. And they want to do the more like multi-year thing of like, being at the top of the leaderboards. And there's going to be leaderboards and rewards for people who, it's going to be like a big race between the 7 different territories on the continent to reconstruct these ancient ruins that are part of the, that they found on the continent. And the first ones to finish the reconstruction project, which is going to take some number of years, and everyone kind of works together on it in the territory, they'll unlock the secret. And everyone will eventually be able to unlock the secret, but like whoever unlocks it first gets the benefit first.
I've got to ask. So what is the secret of Praetoria?
Well, I can't tell you. It wouldn't be much of a secret. So very few people internally know. And it's up to the players to see if they want to participate in that. But what I look at it like the movie Contact. I don't know if you saw the movie Contact.
Yeah.
And basically they get this message from aliens, and they're like, they don't know what it is, and they got to decipher it, and then they figure out it's to build this thing, and they don't know what the thing does, and then they build this thing. So it's like, it's not message from aliens, but basically the whole story is that there's this new continent that was discovered, Praetoria, and that's where all this land is. And there was this big land rush to get it. The players own the land there, and on this continent there are these ancient ruins things, and there's all these clues to some like big, really exciting thing that can be unlocked. And so everyone works together to kind of, you can choose if you want to use some or all of your land to conduct research. And that research like are points that go towards, unlocking different phases of this reconstruction project. So you like do the research and you're like, okay, we've figured out how to reconstruct this portion of it. And then you need to contribute all these resources to reconstruct it. And then, and so it's similar to like Contact in the sense. And then once it's all finished, if you reconstructed the entire thing, then it all, does what it does, and you reveal the secret. And, we've been very clear with everyone that there would be significant rewards for the people that unlock the secret. Will be very beneficial to the people who contributed. And it's, relative to the amount you've contributed. So if you only contribute a little bit, you'll only benefit, proportionally versus if you've contributed a lot. So, I think we're building actually a pretty fun and interesting thing. That's going to be this whole side separate game, but it produces the assets that will be needed for the regular battling in Splinterlands.
Interesting. This is wild. The level of complexity and detail of this new part of the game is mind-blowing to me, and it just goes to show like how skilled your developers are, because as I was telling you earlier, I interview a lot of companies and projects, and they talk a big game, but they sometimes never have anything to show for it, even after many months or even years. However, you guys, I've already built Splinterlands, this amazing game, and now you're building essentially this land resource management mini game inside of this as a part of a item and spell card generation mechanism based on this whole land grab for this continent of Praetoria, I believe, and it's all user driven.
Yeah, 100%.
And user incentivized. So the users are incentivized to do this because they will earn value in the game and be able to use those cards themselves or sell them or rent them and make money from it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And again, like we approach this less from a company perspective. Like we're not like big VC backed or whatever, and like, need to produce a certain returns or whatever. We're just gamers that are like trying to produce awesome games, and we want our players to be the value, right? And to reap the value of all this alongside of us. So that's what this is all about.
Well, this is I think is really cool, and I think this is something that players are really going to enjoy because this is a whole game in itself. I mean, you could spend all your time just playing this part and never even battling the cards.
And this part also is one that really focuses more toward people who might be more into the DeFi and trading space. Like this is less about like real time battling and that stuff, and it's really more about sort of like arbitrage and finding niches and like when do you provide liquidity? When do you use it to do other things? When do you upgrade things? Like, what's the best? It's a very like min-maxing focused game, basically.
Yeah, and this is that's the kind of game that I've always enjoyed. Kind of browser-based strategic resource management games is something I grew up on, and I love that this is built in to your Web3 game here, and it's just like a whole nother dimension to the Splinterlands economy and world.
Yeah, and it's like you've played those type of resource management games, but here every single resource is tradable and sellable, right? So it's really like a mini. You're building your own mini business, like a real world business inside the game, and you got to figure out how to put an initial outlay of capital to get your land and your buildings and your cards and all the things that you need, and try to manage expenses and overall run a profitable business.
That's amazing, and especially the fact that there is real world value here in playing this part of the game, whether you're playing the card game or the land resource management game that is tied in with the card game. There's real world value to be had here for those who invest the time and the resources into maximizing their gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm super excited about it. Like myself. Like I bought a lot of land when we initially sold it. Yeah, most of the people that work for us are super excited. It's frustrating that these things, they take a while to finish, but like we're going to do it. Like we're not going anywhere because this is just like whether I'm getting paid or not to do it. This is what I'm going to do because I want to play this game.
Yeah, and this is a huge build. All right, just I can tell you as a software engineer, I've worked in corporate development jobs for a decade, and I would develop games on the side when I after work, and this is a big endeavor here. So obviously, there's going to be a lot of development, especially when money is involved on the blockchain. You have to make sure everything is tested very thoroughly, and retroactively, like regression tested into the rest of the game to make sure it doesn't break anything else. And especially when you're integrating item and spell cards now into the gameplay itself, you have to make sure everything's still balanced, still fair, still fun. And then you have you have to balance this whole aspect to make sure somebody can't gain a crazy advantage versus other people, other players.
And we try as much as possible to release things in phases. So you'll see this is like phase 1.5, and that flow chart was from phase 2. We don't like to just like wait for years and then drop everything at once, and that gives a bunch of benefits. I mean, one, it allows people to get stuff and start playing with it quickly. It also allows us to sort of see what works and what doesn't piecemeal. So if we like release a first phase with just a few of the things, and we see something that's like kind of not working the way we thought, we haven't just spent 2 years like building a whole thing on some false assumptions or whatever. It really lets us, like, I think, get to a much better final product while also letting our players not have to wait forever and ever and ever. So like right now in the game, everything you see here, or most everything in this white paper, is live. So you have your land, you can see what type of terrain it is, you can buy it, you can sell it, you can put your cards on it, you can stake your dark energy crystals on it, and you can only do like one of 3 things. You can farm grain, you can start doing research, and you can mine SPS tokens. So those are the 3 things you can do right now. Obviously, we're learning a ton about what's working and what's not, and then we're using that as we build out the full system that you saw in that roadmap.
Yeah, and I like that you are taking an incremental approach to this, because it really allows the actual player base to provide the feedback in that feedback loop to make sure it's something that people actually want and that actually fits into the game. You are able to figure that out as you go, versus, like you said, building something for 2 years and then just dropping it into the game, and if it totally flops, that's not good.
Yeah.
This is a much better way to do it, I think, and it's cool that you guys have that kind of higher level view and architecture mindset. You're building this in with good design principles in mind.
We try to. And also, stuff changes in crypto and DeFi so fast that like we might be partway into this and like some new protocol or thing comes out that just does something really cool. And we're like, you know what, we want to do that, so let's do it. Yeah. And that's also, again, for people who are watching this now, while this whole full thing that was shown in that flow chart, maybe a year or so out, or who knows, like you can get in right now before all this is done and out, and still get land when I feel it's relatively cheap on the market. You can start using it right away. You can start getting some of this stuff. You can start getting a head start on the research project, or on just like understanding how this works and producing the basic resources. So again, it's like it's a lot to learn. It takes a lot of time and sort of investment, but that's again where the opportunity lies.
Yeah, I agree. DeFi in general is generally the first movers have the biggest advantage, and it's no different for GameFi games. Oftentimes the first people out here, like, it's a literal land grab. Like,
yeah.
That phrase couldn't be more apt for this situation. It's a land grab right now. And everything involved in this not only supports the in-game card ecosystem and market, but it also supports the SPS, the Splintershards token, and dark energy crystal liquidity, which I think is brilliant. So like your semi-stable coin, which is designed that way on purpose, you are deepening the liquidity with in-game assets this way that actually have value and purpose to these landowners, who will be able to swap between items like stone or wood or ores or whatever, using those dark energy crystal liquidity pools to have a seamless swap. They can earn liquidity fees that way by providing that liquidity. So can anybody in the game, essentially, I believe. Mm-hmm. That deepens the dark energy crystal liquidity, strengthens the price stability, and diversifies that liquidity across in-game assets, which is a really cool idea because it means this isn't dependent on the external crypto macroeconomic environment. So if Ethereum or the HIVE price or whatever were to go down in a bear market, this kind of floats on its own because it's pegged or backed by in-game assets itself. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, it's a stable-ish coin that's backed by Splinterlands products. So ultimately, if there's demand for Splinterlands products, then there will be demand for dark energy crystals.
Yeah, and like the volume per day is good, so I'm assuming that there are going to be some pretty good liquidity fees, and also everything involved here benefits the SPS token, which is, in my opinion, the end game for me as an investor. Everything kind of goes back to supporting this governance token that the game relies on. And like you said, this price spike we've seen the past 3 months is because of this land grab. People are burning their SPS tokens in order to mint dark energy crystals, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So like literally everything in the game requires dark energy crystals and more and more and more. And so the more stuff we release in the game, the more people need dark energy crystals. And there honestly just aren't that many of them that exist in circulation because they get burnt a lot. A lot of the things that when I say they require dark energy crystals, you burn them. So the dark energy crystals go away. And so basically the way most people get them, like you can buy them on the market if they're a little low, but generally, people just burn SPS. So as we release more things with land, and people need tons of DEC to pair in these new liquidity pools, where's that going to come from? Mostly from burning SPS. The card packs that we sell in the game right now, you need DEC, and half of that goes to the DAO, and so that's not burned, but it's sort of taken out of circulation. And where does that come from? A lot of it comes from burning SPS. We have like tons of other features we haven't even talked about. We don't even need to get into, but you want different stuff in the game. You need to burn DEC tokens. And the main way to get those is to burn SPS. And obviously, so ultimately it's a very simple equation. Like the more stuff there is in the game that people want to buy, all that value goes to the SPS token directly. So the more players that come in, the more value you think that the game assets will have. That all just kind of directly goes right into the SPS token.
Right. And have you, I don't know if you guys have calculated this out, but with the rate of the burning of the SPS token based on all these new game additions, do you know if that's, do you know how much that's offsetting the emissions or distribution rate from the SPS token?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's hard to answer as exactly as I would like because of the fact, like what you're looking at there is taking data probably from like Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum, whereas all the actual like burning and things are happening within our own game platform that's built on top of Hive. So it's a little bit like separated. And even so, there's also there's markets on Hive, like AMM markets. So there's also a lot of volume that happens there that you won't see on like CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap. So it's a little bifurcated and hard to get exact numbers. But it's significant, definitely. And it's only increasing over time as we just start releasing more and more of this stuff. And once that system is in place with that SPS chain that I mentioned, then all of the numbers will be exact from that, right? That'll be the go-to place for every exact amount of everything.
That makes sense.
But it's sort of like saying like looking at the wrapped Bitcoin and like Ren Bitcoin on, and trying to figure out the details about the actual Bitcoin, on that chain. So it's a little frustrating, but it's just the way, it's just the way it is when we kind of have our own, distinct system built on a not that hugely popular chain, and the other sites show our like wrapped tokens. But that's what we're working on fixing out with this whole SPS chain concept.
Yeah, and I like that your focus has always been on building the coolest game experience for Splinterlands players. And the side effect of all of these additions is the burning of this SPS supply and increasing of the price. So this is just a side benefit of you guys building like mad men and women over there, and doing what you should be doing as game developers, which is developing the game, right?
Yeah, that's what we do. And it's it's been a little difficult over the years because I see projects that just get like huge grants from whatever, Solana or whatever. They just get tons of money and they throw out something over there that just doesn't seem that great. And everyone like FOMO's into it because it's on the new big chain and whatever. And like, we're just over here trying to build like an actual good product, but like, no one cares because it's not on the hot blockchain of the day. But I still feel like ultimately that's going to be the winning path. Like eventually people are going to get burned enough by just jumping into the hot new thing that had a bunch of capital thrown at it. And there's going to, eventually go back to what's really quality and care less about, which chain it's on and all that. So that's our focus. And like I said, we've been doing this 5 years. We're not going anywhere. We're just going to keep plugging away no matter what happens. We just know ultimately everything, our tokens, the value, everything is just backed by the quality of the product. So we just focus on building the best quality product. And then for the first time this year is really getting the word out there about our quality product. We're going to, I'm going to definitely, we're going to get a top tier, like chief marketing officer in here that knows how to, make a splash in the Web3 space when we're ready. And then that's where I think the real rocket ship happens.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing already, starting these AMA campaigns, going out and reaching new communities like this is the best way to go.
That's the hope. And I want also to like galvanize that community because our players are all heavily incentivized to get more people in here. Right. And, they do all sorts of things, where we have content creators and whatever who promote the product. But I think if we bring someone in like a CMO who knows really how to channel that and how to say to, our player base, like, here's what we need to do. Let's all go out and do this. And, really, and then just be on top of how everything's going, looking at numbers and data, what's working and what's not working. And, do we need to change things in the product to help people, get through the experience better? I mean, I know right now we do, and we're working on them, but like, we'll always be able to improve on that. So that's basically our high level roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months.
I think it's a great idea having somebody that is 100% focused and dedicated to that, because you're obviously, CEO, you got a million things on your plate already. You need somebody who has full dedication to just pushing this out there, setting everything up, setting up all the AMAs, getting the community moving in the same direction on spreading the word organically. And that'll free you up to keep doing what you do best, which is lead and build with your team. Yeah, I think that's a great plan.
Yeah, that's it.
And look at this, $7.2 million in tournament prizes awarded. I keep coming to the screen just to show people, look at how much money has been paid out to players in this game just from tournaments.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
The tournament feature is actually pretty cool. So the DAO is the main sponsor of tournaments, right? And the token holders basically like vote on the details of that, and that's one of the like reward pools of SPS inflation goes toward that. But also, it's an open system where anyone can create a tournament and they can put up whatever they want as prizes. So it's another opportunity when we have like more marketing focus. Is like we've had like other crypto or blockchain platforms or even non-crypto platforms come and just make Splinterlands tournaments and put up their own tokens or their own stuff as prizes as a way of just marketing to our user base.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, and from our user base's perspective, it's just more value to the cards, right? If you have cards and you're good at Splinterlands, you can play in these tournaments. There's more stuff you can win. And then some of them, they can even have like entry requirements, like you need to sign up for something or whatever they want, really. So it's just a really cool, like cross-promotional tool that gives more prizes and more value to Splinterlands assets.
I think that's a great idea. You've got such an active user base that is tech savvy, and I think for marketing purposes, that tournament system there is a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Are the item and spell cards already in effect in the battle system?
No, they're not yet. They don't exist at all. So when this is built, right, that will introduce them as an entirely new thing into the game.
So that's going to be a big overhaul for the whole system then. And people
I mean, it's not a huge overhaul. I mean, we already have the mechanics in place for how that will work. And it's just like kind of adding another feature into the game.
Okay. I know there's some other stuff that you guys have come out with, like conflicts, or you guys are working on that. Do you want to touch on that while I've got you here?
Yeah, sure. So conflicts is a new system we literally just released like a week ago. And basically it's for the latest set of cards, which is called Rebellion. That's the set of cards that are available that you can buy packs from in the shop. The more of those cards you have and you kind of like stake in your account, you earn these points in this conflict. You like contribute them to this big war effort. And you get points, and then you get special airdrop cards. There's going to be one airdrop card a month, I think, for 9 or 10 months. So it's basically just a reward mechanism for the players who, get the new cards, and you can use them obviously to battle in the game. And if you stake them, then you get these new special cards that then you could later turn around and resell or use or whatever. So that's that new system. I think that's the most recent major thing we've done. And then, like I said, we're kind of doing an overhaul to the whole user onboarding experience, and even the gameplay experience for current users, and just hopefully making it a lot easier for people to get in, grok the whole thing, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And not only like just have fun, but also are able to really participate in all the different things that the Splinterlands has to offer.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Obviously, this is a lot of information to digest, even as a DeFi expert myself. And the more I dig into this, the more I love it. And I don't say that about every project that I review or interview on my channel. I think you do have something really special here. So if somebody takes the time to learn how to play this game, they're probably going to enjoy it a lot and potentially make some extra money each month.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't have time to game, but I might have to carve out an hour a week or something just to kind of play around in this, because I love Magic the Gathering. I also love the Ascension card games, and I'm getting big feels of that as I'm looking at this. But then the more I look into each thing, it just grows and branches out into so many different aspects. I could nerd out on this forever. And the more I learn about it, the more opportunities I have to acquire more in-game assets, because I know more, I can play better, I could win more, and I could put those assets to work more intelligently in ways that allows me to acquire more assets in the game and earn as much as possible.
Right, that's the idea. If you're like me, I'm going to play games anyway. If that's what I'm going to spend a lot of my time doing, whether I should or shouldn't is a separate thing. It's what I'm going to do. So if I'm going to do it, I might as well gain value out of it, right? Not just throwing it all away like I did with Hearthstone or Clash of Clans or whatever it is. I might as well make it valuable time while I'm enjoying myself.
Man, when I was deep into gaming way too much, I would look at my Steam, my gameplay hours on Steam for some of my games, and it just makes me think, if I was playing a game where I actually owned the assets that I was acquiring, and I had ownership of them in a decentralized manner, and there's a marketplace and liquidity for them, then those thousands of hours could potentially be worth thousands of dollars. And it would have been a lot easier to justify all that time to myself versus, oh, I should have been working on a business back then, or like, you know, spending more time with my wife, and like, or she, you know, so many different things. I'm like, hey, look what I have to show for it instead.
It's not just the time, it's the money you spent too. So I that's like literally what led to the creation of Splinterlands. Like I spent so much time and so much money on all sorts of different games. And I just felt so bad about it, especially once I had like a family and everything. I was like, I shouldn't be spending this much in these games, and like I should be building businesses and you know, or saving for retirement or whatever. And I'm like, now I can play these games and grow wealth and save for retirement, and like it's just like it's all together. I mean, that's the holy grail, I think.
That's such a great point that you've made there. It really, it's like you're saving in a cool, fun way at the same time that you're having that fun that you want to have anyway as a gamer, and it just makes it more worthwhile, and it makes gaming feel less like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at Magic the Gathering, which worked out that way. Like I have a relatively valuable collection of cards now because of the time and money I spent over the years, and I was like, that totally went away, all out the window with digital games, and that sucked. And I was so excited in 2017 when I like learned about all this stuff. I was like, I have to make a trading card game. It's like it just has to exist, because I know I would like just spend tons of money and time in something like that. And there's a lot of other nerds like me out there who love this stuff.
Me too. And what's amazing is you had that thought and that dream, and you made it a reality in such a big way. You have an economy in this game now with tens of millions of dollars and tens of thousands of users. Almost, you have 50,000 daily users playing this every single day.
Yeah, I mean, it's
you
hard.
made it, man. You built it. You actually did it. That's an incredible thing to say.
It is. It's hard to imagine, because I know at the beginning, you know, this started, it was just me and my business partner. We put up this like crappy website in 2018, and we said, you know, you could buy these packs of cards. There was no game. We were like, we're gonna make a game. We promise. But you could just buy these cards now, and you know, and then that was the alpha edition, and it sold out in the summer of 2018, and we were like, I guess we have to quit our jobs and make a game. You know, it's just just unbelievable. I would never have guessed it would have led to all this and where it is now. But yeah, it's just, again, we're doing the same thing we did back then. It was just like, we personally wanted something like this. We wanted to play something like this, and then we just go out and build it, with our only goal being like making the cool, fun game that we ourselves want to play.
Right. And that's such a success story for entrepreneurs and game developers everywhere, that if you have an idea and a dream, just go for it. And especially in this this space in DeFi and blockchain and Web3, we are like in the forefront. We are in the beginning of that S curve of adoption. We are so early to this space. So all the innovators, all the builders out there, like, jump in here, start building cool stuff. Like, look what Matt and his team built here over the last 5 years. They have a massive game, one of the biggest games in Web3, 50,000 daily users, even in the bear market. We're going into the bull market. Who knows where this thing is going to go? In the bull market, it's just incredible. And you have an economy with tens of millions of dollars flowing between players in a decentralized fashion, all on a essentially gasless blockchain setup that you've created with the HIVE blockchain. I mean, everything you guys did is great, I think. And you're very ambitious in your future plans. And it seems like you were just executing just back to back to back. Everything you guys are saying you're going to build, you built it. And I have full faith that you guys are going to finish phase 2 with the Secrets of Praetoria land management aspect of the game and then incorporate items and spells into the game, which is going to make it even more, in my opinion, even more like Magic the Gathering in terms of like the different dimensions of the card types that you can play.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna do it. I don't know about timelines, or what's gonna happen when. But we got a whole team of people that are just here to see this stuff happen so they can play it themselves.
Yeah. Well, I am so glad you came on to my channel here to talk about this. My community is going to love it. I've been looking for some really great GameFi plays to bring them. Everybody's looking for new GameFi games to play as well. Play to earn is huge. It always will be. It's going to be the biggest way to onboard new users to DeFi and blockchain technology. I still stand by that to this day. We're seeing it happen. You guys have made it seamless where somebody can come here without knowing anything about blockchain tech, without knowing anything about wallets. They can create an account and they don't even have to know that there is a blockchain involved and they can play this game. Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we have strived to do. And, we're always working on improving that experience, but I still think it's, kind of ahead of what most of the projects in the space are. I mean, even I have trouble getting into some of the games and getting all the tokens for the gas fees and the different things that you need to do. And I'm like, if I have trouble with it as one of, the biggest DeFi degens, there's no way just regular gamers are going to do it.
I totally agree. I'm the same way. A lot of GameFi games I want to play, but the hurdle of just like bridging my assets over, eating those fees, and then figuring it all out, and then having to justify paying gas for every single game transaction, it hurts me, man. It hurts me. I can't do it.
So, yeah, 100%.
You have come up with a solution for all of these different pain points in GameFi, and I think it shows by just the word of mouth success you've had over 5 years. And I think once you really pour that gasoline on the fire in terms of spreading this message about Splinterlands, this thing's just going to explode. It's tried and tested. It's incredibly fun. It can be incredibly lucrative. And in my opinion, the SPS token, based on everything we've talked about and all my analysis on this, is primed to go up. Not financial advice. This is my opinion. I'm going to chuck some money at this and pray, like I do with a lot of GameFi altcoins. But like, I have a pretty strong thesis at this point on this for myself, and I'm going to be tracking this now very closely. And I'm going to probably create an account here like this weekend and start putting some SPS tokens to use, at least staking it in your game, and just start earning passively more rewards that way. Where do you think Splinterlands will be in the next 6 months to 1 year?
So, yeah, I mean, I've talked about this a little bit. The goal for the next 6 months to a year, the primary thing we're focusing on is just the whole like onboarding experience and just player experience overall within the game. So all the stuff we talked about is great. It's a lot. It's difficult for people to get into, to figure it out, except for the more serious, dedicated ones. So I want in 6 months to a year from now, I want the experience to be completely different than what it is now, where you kind of come in and you're overwhelmed with a ton of stuff and it's hard to figure it all out, to a site and game and product where you come in and it's like all laid out. It's all clear. It's one click getting you in step by step. One of the things we're going to be really working on is we have a mobile app currently, but it was created kind of by a separate team. And it's, very lacking in features and behind. So like we need to just get a single code base that includes everything in a really, top end mobile app that goes along with the game. And that's all part of, this experience. So that's like the 6 month to 1 year plan.
Awesome. And what about in 2 to 3 years? So let's say end of 2025, beginning of 2026, kind of where I'm thinking the bull run will be at max fervor. Where do you think you'll be then?
I mean, then my hope is we have a really solid, like, just, you know, great game product, like from all aspects. Like right now, things are still early. Things are still, hard to figure out. A little rough around the edges, definitely. But like by that point, like we should have something real solid. And that the whole land expansion we talked about, the Secret of Praetoria, should be all done and part of the game. That those items and spells, that like additional gameplay mechanics, all in there, all part of it. So like people coming into it feel like they're coming into any traditional game from a large game company they might download on the App Store. And that's the part where you're not early anymore, right? That's the part where there's not the huge opportunity that we see now. So if we were able to achieve that, my hope is that we have one of the first, if not the first, kind of real mainstream blockchain based games that has ever been in the market.
I think that's a good goal, and you already have a game that I think is polished and very successful. So even more polish on it, and all the stuff you are building out on top of it. I think in the next year or two, it will just take this thing to the next level, and especially as your user base expands above and beyond 50,000 users per day, which is already massive, by the way. That is huge for anybody out here in GameFi. That's a crazy amount of daily active users, okay? So I think in the bull run, we're probably going to see multiples of that, in my opinion, especially if you do this marketing campaign hard over the next couple year or two. Man, at 2025, 2026, like I could totally see 250,000 daily active users. I don't know. I always set high goals, but DeFi's crazy in the bull run. Everybody's going to be looking for games.
Yeah, I mean, I expect, like if we're successful, we can be like a mainstream game, and we could potentially have even millions of users. And that's the goal. That's what we're going for.
Do you think your game can scale to manage that amount of bandwidth?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, even in the last bull market, I mean, we I'm sure got up to 250,000 daily active accounts playing.
Wow.
There was at least like 10x the volume, I think, that was going on. And like at that time, we had a much smaller team. Things were breaking. There was all kinds of problems, fires, and whatever. This time we're ready. I mean, we've been through all that before. We know exactly, what to look out for. We fixed most of the things. So yeah, that part, I mean, the scaling, I'm 100% confident in. It's just a matter of, finishing, building out all the stuff we've been working on and, seeing it through.
That's amazing that your game can scale to those numbers and has already proven that in the last bull run. So yeah, everybody watch and keep an eye out for Splinterlands. If you aren't already familiar with it, my opinion is this thing is going to take off in the bull run like crazy. It's already one of the most successful games out here, in my opinion, with one of the best track records that we've seen in the space. Definitely the best track record of anybody I've interviewed on my channel. And I've interviewed probably 100 different projects and companies out here. You guys have really stood the test of time and have the community and the actual game to prove it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, we're starting to get the word out there finally 5 years later.
Yeah. With that being said, let's talk about a call to action. How would somebody who is interested in Splinterlands get involved?
Yeah, I mean, the first step, you can go to splinterlands.com and you can sign up. Super easy. And then, we talked about, you mentioned After Sound Gaming as one, streamer.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to figure out and get into it. If you're interested, there's lots of streamers. There's lots of content creators. Jump in our Discord. There's links at the bottom of splinterlands.com to the Discord and other channels. And there's a community of, like you said, tens of thousands of people who just are super excited to see new people come in and help out and get started.
Absolutely. I will put the links to Splinterlands, your communities and socials, as well as to After Sound Gaming, his excellent YouTube channel. I'll put that all in the links in the description of the video. So check those links out. Go to splinterlands.com, sign up, at least try it out for free. Try out the free version if you want to play the game before you get a spell book and try it out that way. But that's all I've got on my end. Do you have anything else you want to tell the audience today, Matt?
I can't think of anything else other than just to reiterate, you guys sort of this opportunity is early, even though like we've been doing this for 5.5 years. I feel like it's been all that time of like learning and figuring out, and I finally feel like, and it's been a little stressful for me, sort of like always just trying to figure this out and like knowing we've done things wrong and I don't always know how to do it right. And I feel like we're very clear now on the right way to do this, how the tokens are integrated, the tokenomics, the cards, the NFTs, the gameplay, everything. And it's just a matter of building it out, making it easy for people to get into. And that's what we're doing now. And then, like we said, promoting it. So, I legitimately feel like this is a fantastic opportunity to get in kind of before all that stuff happens for the people who want to put the time and effort into figuring it out.
Absolutely. And I also think we are at an inflection point with Splinterlands based on my own personal analysis of just the SPS token and my fundamental analysis and TA. It's looking good in my book. I'll talk about this more in my live show because I will take up a position with my own money, and I will keep you guys informed about how it's doing. This will become one of my Game 5 plays. I am very bullish on Splinterlands, on Matt, and the whole team. I've been very impressed with everything I've seen so far. So you guys, check out Splinterlands. It's super cool. It's like Magic the Gathering on the blockchain, online. You can make money playing it. How cool is that? So, Matt, I just want to say thank you so much for taking all this time to make this with me. I'm sure I'll have you on my channel again at some point for an update, but I've really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate the work and the effort that you put in. So, I mean, I'm sure your audience knows this, but man, like you really did the work. You didn't just come on and, wing it. Like, Alex spends the time here to learn what he's talking about. And I appreciate that too, because, I want someone who knows what they're talking about to talk to, really get the word out there.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. That's been my bread and butter, is hard work and preparation. So that way I can bring the best information as possible to my viewers. And I just want to say before we go, thanks for all the kind words. And Vonak.
We're gonna bring
make
in
sure
those.
let Nate know. Vonak.
I will. That'll be the new hand symbol.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. And anybody watching, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, join me in my Discord server at discord.gg/YaBonks. You will find a Splinterlands channel in there. I'll post all the links in there too. And you guys can follow all of their announcements and discuss what you think about Splinterlands in there. If you have any questions, just reach out to me and let me know. And thank you so much for watching, everybody. I will catch you on the next one. See you later.